Yes.
Okay, I think we'll get going with the this next workshop, Recognition of Prior Learning. Those of you who came last year will know what a wonderful time we had looking at RPL last year, and as a result of that workshop, we developed a policy on direct entry into the open programme, which can be rolled out into to other qualifications. So it does have an impact for these actions of the workshop. I think today we're going to be looking more at recognition of prior learning. So I'll hand over to Claire and Tanya and Steve who are presenting the workshop.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't know where Tanya's gone actually. Okay, thank you everybody for coming and taking time out of your busy schedules. My name is Claire Dunn, I'm the manager for recognition of prior learning here. I'm based within OUBP, which forms a big part of academic services now. I've got some of my fellow colleagues in the room with me today. I thought it would be a good idea just to introduce ourselves, if that's okay, because I know there'll be a few of you that might not know each other. So I'll start with this side.
I'm Teresa Britt and I'm from BDU. I'm leading the product development part of the apprenticeship programme, for which credit transfer and recognition of prior learning more broadly is a real challenge, and we're hoping to get some outcomes that will make that better.
I'm Steph Idol. I'm a senior lecturer in law and I do LPL for the law school. Can I just warn you I'm slightly deaf, if you could look at me when you talk, I lip read a bit. Thank you.
Thanks. My name is Karina Bossu. I work with the APG team and I'm academic lead for Applaud. So my interest here is how we do RPL at Open University, as I'm new to the university still, and then how we can incorporate that into the new PG Tech.
I'm Sharon Hall. I work in the credit transfer department, actually doing credit transfer assessments. So this is something that will be developed in conjunction with what we already do, and hopefully find out a lot more information.
I'm Helen Cook. I won't turn around for Stephanie's birthday, but I am a senior manager in curriculum innovation, working primarily on the open programme stuff and working really closely with Claire and Peter to move forward some of the direct entry work, and also talking about our empty box module and how we recognise prior learning and that kind of thing.
I'm John Atkins. I'm a quality and partnerships manager with validation partnerships.
Kath Brown, Student Association President. Largely here because I always want to find out more about what's going on, and these assessment workshops have been great so far, and also hopefully if a student perspective is needed I can help bring that.
Hi, I'm Donna Pike. I'm from Havering College, so from a partner institution.
I'm Naomi Haig. I'm a Senior Quality and Partnerships Manager in OU Validation Partnerships.
I'm Luke Singleton. I'm an Ambitious Futures graduate trainee, placed in Open University Validation Partnerships, and similarly for me it's more of a learning experience to see more about RPL.
I'm Elle White. I work in academic services and I'm currently leading a piece of work around induction, so I'm interested in how students that come with direct entry are inducted into the university.
I'm Khadija Patel and I work for the Employer Engagement and Partnership team and I cover colleges.
Stephen McGeever. I'm Partnerships Manager at the Open University in Scotland, and I'm here really because RPL and prior credit underpins most of the work that we do in that area, working with colleges and college students in Scotland.
I'm Catherine Daniel. I'm responsible for the university's academic regulations, including the regulatory side of credit transfer.
I'm Ellie Ogram, Team Manager in Credit Transfer.
I'm Donna Wright. I'm the Senior Quality and Partnerships Manager in OUVP, and we work with Claire on developing our partners' RPL processes based on the OU's practice.
I'm Kathleen Quinn. I'm Deputy Programme Director for Maths and Statistics, and I've been asked to kind of look after credit transfer in our area, and that's why I'm here.
Hello, I'm Jay Rickson. I'm the Senior Manager in Curriculum Innovation and I look after projects there predominantly, but I'm also the Qualification Manager for the UMA/MSc Open.
Evelyn Mooney, Lecturer in Nursing with the Central Nursing Team. I'm here, I'm fairly new to the Open University, and also I'm working on stage 2 of the nursing degree programme, and for the NMC there is an element of prior learning that we can actually credit into the programme, so here to understand the process and head at the OUA.
Mike Phillips, Head of Student Experience Apprenticeships with Faculty of Business and Law. As a title says, I'm involved with apprenticeships a lot. I picked up responsibility for credit transfer, and also we'll be looking at RPL type areas, a bit like Teresa's already mentioned. So
Bad job you do too.
And a bad job you do too.
it doesn't feel like it from where I sit. I'm still sweeping up problems at the moment, so apologies I'm doing this. I've got shit to sort out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's why I didn't jump in, sorry, Peter.
I'm here with multiple hats. So I'm here as Director of the Assessment Programme, and RPL is part of the Assessment Programme, but I'm also here as Director of the Open Programme because we're keen to develop RPL into the Open Programme, which is why we have the direct entry policy, and with Helen we've been working on developing empty box modules and generally thinking about ways in which we can be creative in allowing students to bring prior learning into the institution. I'm also here with a kind of CSR hat on, so thinking about what it would mean for new systems and how we would build them into new systems.
Thanks everyone. So I'm the business manager for credit transfer, and I've been in credit transfer for about 25 years, so I like to think that maybe I'm a subject matter expert. And always welcome to answer any questions, always available by Skype if after the session you want to read about anything. Because today is quite general, but you might be specifically interested in a particular qualification, stats wise, or potential credit transfer students coming into a particular qualification or module. So please feel free to always Skype or email me at any time.
Okay, so contents for today then. So I'm going to start off actually getting you involved and a little bit active to start with, to get an idea of how you kind of define RPL, what you feel the benefits are. So we'll do that first off in a minute. We're then going to have a little bit of an RPL quiz, so to see what you know about RPL at the Open University. We're then going to give a bit of an update on RPL activity. Now there's lots and lots of work that has gone on kind of since I started last March and since the last workshop. So we're only going to be able to go through a few of those, but we're going to focus on, show you some data for the last academic year. Tanya's going to give an update on student support from the last workshop and what's kind of happening there. I'm going to go over kind of articulation agreements, which is a piece of work that I've been working on since I started, and then we'll go through the direct entry policy review. Steve's going to come in with a presentation on how RPL supports development of partnerships with the college sector. I'm then going to do a couple of slides on RPL and curriculum design, so the sort of things to think about when designing new curriculum in relation to RPL. And then I'm going to get you actively involved again towards the end when we're going to look at kind of recognition of prior experiential learning. So an initial kind of thought showering process of how we could potentially assess people's experiential learning. So to get started then, I'm conscious that there are a few of you that some tables with less people on, so if you wanted to move around then feel free to do so. So what I'd like you to do is just 5 minutes that you'll notice there's some flip chart paper on your table. So I'd just like you on your table to list keywords that reflect your understanding of RPL, and then write a key benefit of RPL for the 3 stakeholders listed on there. So students, institutions and employers. And then we'll share the ideas.
Yeah.
You have to start. I'll start. It looks like you're each of them. I just sorry. I can't. I'm ambitious.
I'm just saying recognition file and mail.
Yes. I was actually going to say recognition. I think the recognition bit's really important. Keyword.
The word that came to my mind was opportunity.
We'll steal that one.
Oh wow.
What, sorry, what did you say?
Sort of recognition of skills, that's all.
So should we put those?
I think there's something around fairness as well. Yeah, recognition of people studying outside of the degree.
I know sometimes you kind of want to just
Coming and studying.
you want to use the
I often get
benefits
students I really have to study all this shit, you know, but I got to pay all this money and
Sorry, I write really
time
small.
to do it all again when they feel that actually I've done it all before, I just don't have a certificate to tell them.
Yeah, I think that's why it's kind of like the
it's efficiency for the student.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Something like that. When they retire,
they've got something to be able to stop.
So yeah, it's kind of established.
because they're to all. And I overrode that wrongly, but I did anyway, and said that actually, that what they were doing in their job was positive, they did nothing about it, and living it was their job, and therefore,
But it's also something
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to go around.
Subject relevant, and then also timing as well. So that's when he was an opportunity then to
Not what we're going down. Well, I would.
I've got 2 more minutes.
These other things benefit.
Just more. Yeah.
So we're saying about the opportunity. Yes,
I think there is a
Without saying
it makes the institution more attractive. So
that's
around our mission. In terms of,
So yeah,
there are people who haven't got pay levels.
Okay, last minute, and then I'll
skill set.
maybe that's
Well, I think
our mission in terms of course.
I think
I never volunteered.
So it is actually
awful handwriting.
I can read it. More students. More students.
Never know.
I was told that as well. I was told I've never got stories because my voice is
Have we got any back in the education mechanism in our team? And they also, but it actually employer was quite bad.
Right, okay, I'm going to stop you there.
Maybe understanding actually more generally
We're carried away with it.
Sorry.
The problem is, in something like that, you can potentially talk for quite a while, but really for me, that activity was just to get an idea of kind of how you see RPL, because people do see it very differently, which I'll show you in a minute. That the sector defines it differently. We use different acronyms for it. So it's just to get a feel for kind of how you see it and sort of benefits. What I will do is I'll take a picture of all of these and attach them to the slides, and then I'll circulate the slides later on to all of you. So if you want to kind of go, if you want to start this table, whoever, anybody, to share.
So I think most people will start with recognition and prior and learning.
Yeah.
Because it kind of says, does what it says on the tin. Do you want me just to do the key benefit?
Yeah.
Yeah, key benefits. So amongst other things, we said a benefit for students is the flexibility. So being able to obviously count learning that they've done before and not having to start from scratch. For the institution, more students. So we talked about capturing the market, which we thought was a little bit kind of mercenary, I think was the word I used. But yeah, being able to meet that student need. And from an employer point of view, partnership opportunities. So yeah, opportunities for both the institution and also employers to be able to meet the needs of their employees.
Yeah, and I think actually the direct entry kind of policy that has now been approved will only further enhance.
You won't be able to stop. Is that we talked about learning, not just being about knowledge, but also about skills.
Yeah.
So recognition of both knowledge and skills.
And I think that's important.
What you already know.
Yeah, I think that is really important to acknowledge, particularly when we look at things like apprenticeships and how we can recognise prior learning in relation to those. Would you like to go? I don't. Whoever would like to share your.
Okay. So yeah, a bit like on the other table, we said recognition. We also said opportunity, fairness, flexibility, something that could be timely because you don't have to go back and study again. And from the institution's point of view, there's an element of making yourselves competitive, and that's a buy-in that you'll get from students because they're not going to go elsewhere if you say to them, yes, we can recognise what you have already done. Yeah, and there was Peter also mentioned the fact that particularly from our perspective, there's something about it that really chimes well with the concept of open entry.
Thank you very much.
Do you want me to? Yeah. Okay. So in terms of keywords, we were thinking about, well, we're thinking about prior higher education study. So we're thinking about RPL, we're thinking about prior study that's at HE level, so OU level 1 and above. Thinking about equivalency in terms of subject equivalency and relevance, and also thinking about time in terms of how up to date a qualification is. And so you're thinking about both about subject relevance and also to what extent has time diminished that. We were thinking very much about, in terms of students, institutions and employers, we're thinking about the benefit of RPL in terms of time and cost saving. So for an individual student, it's a quicker route to qualification and potentially a cost saving if they come in with RPL. And likewise for an employer, if they have an employee who's able to build on previous qualifications and they're sponsoring through a degree, then there's a time and a cost saving for them as well. The other sort of key one that we've not with is opportunity. In terms of the opportunity that we have as a university to make more of RPL and to do more RPL and make more of that market.
That's one of the things really, flexibility, another chance, students, recognition, inclusive. I think you also have something from employers to benefit from employers.
Oh yeah, for healthcare support workers who are working and have dropped out of the Redbrick universities that have 120 credits. Mm-hmm. The employer sees that while there is a cost to training, they see it perceptually as a fast track route to get the student through into stage 2 and 3 and then registered nurses at the end. So as everybody was talking, I thought about the, I don't know if it's part of this, but it's our overseas nurses who are having to either do their programmes all over again because of the whole piece around equivalencies and LARAC, and that's actually quite detrimental to students. And I think maybe as an organisation, if we could tackle making that simpler and recognising some overseas qualifications and helping students fast track through, because certainly I have experience of students that have worked for many years in the Philippines or Romania or anywhere in Europe, and some of them are having to actually do their degree all over again because they've either been out of practice for a while or it's just not recognised because it's not on a standard. So I think there needs to be a bit of work done around certainly fast tracking into stage 2 if we can get prior learning for stage 1.
Yeah, and I think the kind of direct entry policy will obviously promote that as well. Yeah. I think for me, kind of coming from a further education background, one of the key benefits for me is kind of that bridging the gap between different kind of sectors that deliver higher education qualifications and kind of moving them closer together. And I think it is really important for us to try and develop more partnerships with you know, further education and other organisations that are out there. What I just wanted to show you is kind of a couple of definitions. So I thought that, you know, I'm going to show you the definition of how we all know the QAA, how they define recognition of prior learning. But before I do that, I just wanted to make the point that actually the definition of RPL is so inconsistent across the sector. At the Internbull's kind of report last year that they brought out, that looked at credit practices in the UK, it is very inconsistent, and I think that's what causes a lot of confusion. So this is how the QAA define RPO. You have got handouts, by the way, on your desk if you wanted to make any notes on those. I won't read out the definition for you, but that's kind of how they define it. However, in other areas of the sector, we refer to it as accreditation of prior learning, and I know areas of our university also refer to it as accreditation of prior learning. Also known as assessment of prior learning, so again another terminology used. When you go kind of into the European market, you hear terms such as validation of prior learning, and then when you go more internationally, you hear terms such as prior learning assessment and recognition. So it is something that is well known within higher education, but it is often confused in terms of the terminology that's used. How do we define it then? So this is taken from our kind of website here at the Open University. So this is kind of how we define recognition of prior learning. And I think what's key within that definition is acknowledging that learning and achievement potentially comes from different areas, not just from an academic setting. I kind of see it as an umbrella term. So recognition of prior learning kind of being up here, because within that encompasses lots of different ways that we can recognise people's learning. We've got recognition of prior certificated learning, which kind of includes that credit transfer, which we're familiar with here at the Open University. We've got direct entry, recognition of prior experiential learning. So we've got the recognition of prior certificated learning, credit transfer, and direct entry that kind of focus on the kind of academic performance, and then the kind of recognition of prior experiential learning that kind of allows for the wider learning. So we're kind of acknowledging, by it being an umbrella term, that learning comes from different parts of our life. It comes from an academic setting, it comes from a professional setting, and it also comes from a personal kind of life places. But actually, in terms of recognising it, the process that we use to assess it is exactly the same. So how do we define these different terms here at the Open University? So again, recognition of prior certificated learning is taken from our website here. This can kind of encompass professional employment-based qualifications that might not necessarily be credit-bearing or lead to a qualification that sits in the framework of higher education qualifications, but it might be at higher education level and therefore needs to kind of undertake some kind of credit assessment. Or it includes credit transfer as we know it, so recognising qualifications that have been completed and have some credit that have taken place at UK or international higher education institutions. Here's how we define direct entry. So direct entry is slightly different to recognition of prior certificated learning. I have deliberately missed out a section there about direct entry because it is in your quiz, so I didn't want to include that. I'll be giving away one of the answers straight away. So obviously direct entry has been something that has been in the policy, from my understanding, although I'm new, ever since it was established, but it hasn't necessarily been able to be operationalised. And then recognition of prior experiential learning. So the idea that learning, experiential learning, so we learn in all contexts, and it's the learning that happens outside of formal education. And I think this is the kind of area where the university really needs to kind of explore more and develop our practices in. Okay, we're going to have a bit of a quiz now. Sorry there's no prizes. That is very, very bad. We haven't doing any prizes. I will remember next time. So, you'll notice there is a quiz answer sheet on your desk. So, we're going to do it as a table. So, you might be quiet when you ask some questions. So, it's just a bit of fun just to find out kind of what you know about RPL at the Open University. So myself, I'm going to be the flipper, I think Tony's going to be the question master. So, question number 1. When a student applies for recognition, sorry, I'm doing your bit. Okay. Sorry. Take it over.
So first question, I'll come over here just so they can see me. So the first question is, so when a student applies for recognition of prior learning, they can be awarded 3 types of exemption. Can you list the 3 types?
So that's
Are we ready for question 2? Okay, question 2.
Okay, question 2. So when a student is awarded exemption against OU study, grades or marks are awarded for the prior learning involved. Is that true or false? So when they're transferring in their study, just do the credit transfer team recognise the grades and marks when they're making an award of credit transfer? Ready for us to move on?
Question 3 then.
Okay, so the maximum proportion of credit which can be awarded for RPL against any qualification is 1/3, 50%, or 2/3. So this is the maximum. It doesn't mean that this is the maximum for all qualifications, but this is the maximum that can be awarded at the Open University.
Question number 4.
So students can be awarded credit transfer towards part of the module. Is that true or false? True, so I see that instant. Is Elizabeth at the bar with going on with the credit transfer staff there?
I don't think it's possible, but you could be awarded credit transfer to 150 credits. Yeah. You might have to do 60s, but
Are you ready for question 5?
Yeah, it's a little bit ambiguous.
Okay.
Yeah. Question 5. If a student is awarded stage exemption through direct entry, credit will not be awarded for their prior learning. True or false?
Okay. Question number 6.
Question number 6. RPL credits can be awarded at FHEQ level 6, that's OU level 3, within the final stage of a qualification. Is this true or false?
Yeah.
Well, this is a debate going on.
Okay, question number 7.
Credit transfer will only be awarded if the prior study has been completed within a timescale appropriate to the OU qualification. But what is the maximum age of prior study that can be considered for credit transfer? Is this 5, 10, 12 or 16 years? So there will be shorter time limits within a qualification, but what is the maximum allowed at most universities?
If I come in and say I've got someone who's experienced and I can read about
But age of degree. I've had this argument.
We've got 2 minutes to jump in.
Okay, question number 8.
Question number 8. So, to the nearest 1,000 then, how many students received the credit transfer award towards between 2017-18? Was it 2,000, 4,000, 6,000 or 8,000?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is that how many were they received a credit transfer award and used it towards qualification?
No.
Okay.
So it was how many received a credit transfer award across all OU?
Regardless of whether or not they actually took up OU.
Yeah, we'll move on to that later. Trying to jump to question 9, Helen.
And question number 9.
For Helen. So, out of these students, what percentage have already registered on an OU module? So in 17-18, out of those number of students, really said it, what percentage have already registered on an OU module? 12%, 25%, 33% or 40%? Sorry, 46%. Now, I will give a little clue. For those that attended the RPL workshops last year, we have seen an increase.
And final question. You ready for the final question? So question 10.
What percentage of new framework graduates in 17-18 had credit transfer in their profile? So all those that were conferred and graduated between in 17-18 academic year, was it 20%, 33% or 58%? And this is across all qualifications.
Yeah, because we are.
Yeah, they're looking at some of the standards. Yeah. Yeah. As well. Yeah.
So some of the data we will be showing you in a little while, but let's see how you got on. So I'm going to go around the a table at a time. Argue the question afterwards. Yeah, maybe. So I'm going to start with this table. Question 1. What's your answer to question 1, please?
Well, I could
3 types of exemption.
We could identify the credit transfer and direct entry.
Okay.
And it was the third type which we struggled on, but we put RPEL in.
Okay. Any other kind of?
We've got module, general, and stage.
So we can kind of process module, general, credit, or stage exemption. So stage exemption relates purely to, well, not in isolation, but it relates to direct entry.
So I'm just going to give a quick definition. So module exemption would be a student meeting the learning, mapping the learning outcomes against a module with their previous study. General credit exemption would mean transferring in and the student with their prior study and the OU modules would have met the learning outcomes of the whole qualification. And stage exemption would be moving on to that, but that would be direct entry and going in straight into the next stage without actually avoiding of the credit.
Can I ask a question follow-up? On the general
Yes.
credit exemption,
Yes.
I get your definition, but how in reality does that differ when the only way we can actually award credit transfer is per module or by a step? You know what I mean? We
It just
can't
means
give
that-
it for anything
yeah.
less than a module.
So some qualifications, a particular module, to be able to progress and be awarded qualification, you would have had to meet the learning outcomes of the whole module within the qualification. However, sometimes there are a module within an OU qualification. It's not necessary to have met all the learning outcomes of that module to progress and move on. So that's when the faculty are probably likely to award general credit, and that would be probably towards a list of options where there doesn't have to be a specific module that must be completed to progress.
So general credit is it's only general credit that's awarded to open degree students.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Because it doesn't.
We're not looking at subject matter or
Yeah.
that
explains it. Yeah.
There can be general credit awarded towards a compulsory module within an end degree, but that would mean that that particular module doesn't when the module was set up, it means that the prior study doesn't have to meet all the learning outcomes of that particular module. So it could be maybe there's not sufficient curriculum to have introduced a level 1 module, but it's not important that even if you're studying that module to have met all, when you look at the overall qualification outcomes, it probably constitutes only a tiny bit towards the overall learning outcomes of the qualification. But predominantly, it's normally general credit exemption towards a list of options and module exemption towards a core compulsory module.
Question number 2.
False.
False.
I can't remember what the question was.
It was false. So when a student is awarded exemption against OU study, grades or marks are not transferred. So it's just the credit and not the grades.
So is that, I have a question. Is that something we would like to do in the future? I don't have to answer it now, but at some point.
It would have to be a unified grading scale
Yep.
up and down the country, so we know that, yes, ideally it would be fantastic. There's one exception there. If we have any partnerships or any collaborative modules, if a student was, and we were eventually completing them on a collaborative module, so they did a Scottish history with Dundee University, we recognise their pass mark and their grade, and Sharon actually does it.
Yeah.
And we, again, our marking scale does not align with Dundee, so we've had to come up with an alignment ourselves. So if they get a first with Dundee, it means they've got a first with the
So
OU.
what precipitated that being put in place for that?
What
precipitated making that happen for those Scottish partnerships as opposed to for anything else when there isn't natural alignment?
That was what the faculty worked out, the grading scale. That was part of the partnership with Dundee. That was part of the agreement. It's only a slight difference in the grading scale, but obviously for credit transfer, it's not a partnership with one university. It's even not just all universities in the UK. It's overseas as well. So it would have to be kind of one system fits all. And we know at the moment when we're scrutinising the transcripts, when the students are transferring in the credits, the actual marking scale it's vast really. There's no sort of uniformity there. So.
Question.
Just a question about that, which you maybe pick up later on. If you've given an exemption to a module at, say, OU level 2, how does the degree classification then work out? Because that will be based on the marks from the level 2 and level 3 modules.
Yeah, the classification of an OU degree purely goes on OU study. So, for example, for the open degree, the classification we worked out, if they were awarded 240 credits, general credit towards the open degree, the classification is worked on the level 3 OU study only.
Okay, that's very useful to know because I'm going to get that query with some particular students.
It's in the help centre. We can refer the students to in the help centre for classification thing and what the thresholds are for going down how many credits.
Yeah, no, I've been looking at that because I have particular queries, but not on that specific issue. That's just come up today.
Special algorithm.
There's reduced thresholds for
Credit transfer, and before 2000, we used to be awarding grade 4 pass, so it used to really drag down the classification of the degree. So it was.
That's what. That's well, just thinking about how it what's the phrase I'm looking for? Didn't want it to disadvantage individuals coming in through that route, but equally it then puts pressure on the work that they're doing now. So.
Question number 3. Any takes on question number 3? I need the sheet to remember what question number 3 was. Sorry.
Yes.
The maximum proportion. What is the max? Is it 50%, 1/3, or 2/3?
2/3.
2/3, yeah. But that doesn't, so that obviously, 240 credits, but in the different, for each qualification, in their own regulations, they will decide how much they will allow of credit transfer. As a kind of team, we do try and encourage programme teams to put 2/3. Not saying that just because it's in their regulations they have to allow 2/3, but what that does do is it opens up to those students that meet those. If they restrict it to say 120, they are likely to then have students that would potentially, could be awarded. So just by having it in the regulations up to 2/3 doesn't mean that they have to give it, but it does give the flexibility.
And credit transfer students do shop around, so if they contact the credit transfer team and we say there's a maximum of 120 credits available towards our 360 degree, they're going to shop around and see who's going to be willing to assess for 240 credits.
Question number 4 then, students can be awarded credit transfer towards parts of a module, true or false?
False.
We thought this was a bit of a
debate going on here.
Because you can have, for example, 140 credits worth of credit transfer, and that would mean you would have to count part of the module to actually make this up into an integral number of, the appropriate credit for the stage.
In the new framework, we are bound, but we can only award credit in multiples of 30 and 60. That's really to suit the OU curriculum.
Right.
However, if there were 15 credit modules or 10 credit modules introduced, then we could award lower amounts of credit transfer. We certainly did in the old framework. We awarded in chunks of 5 credits, and it fit, so that was absolutely fine. Going forward, it would be absolutely great to be able to give part exemption towards a module, and maybe with experiential learning, again, there's something that we can investigate there, whether that's something, it never has happened, but it possibly could.
Can I just ask though, you mentioned about the part exemption, but there would also be the option, and this again, it came in quite a lot during the old framework when you didn't have to do 120, 120, 120, that you might have, for example, 150 credits at level 2, and when the classification was being worked out, you might actually end up using half of a 60 credit module for that. And I was wondering,
so we can give part exemption towards a stage. So we can give part exemption towards, let's say, credit transfer towards whole of stage 1, part exemption towards stage 2. We have to be careful, and this is where the credit transfer team look at the qualification to see how the award can fit and whether it's appropriate the amount of credit. So if stage 2 only consists of 260 credit modules in a particular named degree, and the students successfully completed 30 credits at level 2, we know we can't award credit. So there has to be sufficient credit. If within level 2 there's 30 credit options, then we can give part exemption and awards 30. The credit transfer team fit towards the curriculum.
What about if you had a student who came and they've got 150 credits, they're going to go to the open degree and then they decide to do 2 60 credit modules?
We would reduce their credit transfer.
Right, that's what I was wondering about.
They can't. What we don't want to see is is
you
more than
wouldn't
120
avoid the half
stage.
module.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can I, just a quick question. Sorry, did you say the minimum transfer award now is 30? Yeah.
Towards new framework qualifications, we're looking for a minimum of 30 credits.
Can students combine?
They can.
So a student who's got say 100 credits from an HNC and is missing 20, so they have 100 rather than 120. But if they have a 20 credit module from say a Scottish university, that's okay.
Yeah, we see students coming in with smaller chunks of credit from professional bodies. They can put 2 15 credit modules together.
Okay,
you do have to have a minimum of 30 credits, unless it's a qualification with less than 30 credits.
That's fine, but that's in total, so they can still have 100 from something, 20 from something else,
Yeah,
and together
that's fine.
they can do,
Absolutely fine.
I suppose when you say, we all know the challenge of the problem with only being able to take a minimum level of 30 or 60 and our kind of size of our chunks being flexibility. But I guess I'm interested perhaps later if we can look at the linked issue, because it's not just about well, if you could give part, because then it's, well, in our rigid world of starting and ending and structure, it's what that would actually mean in practical terms.
Yes.
You know, what I mean, if anyone knows, that would be really interesting to have input on that, because you know, that's part of the challenges we're grappling with, because you know, you can't, what would you do? Not do some of the work and then decide which bits were in agreement with the academic tutor, how you, it's just not manageable.
No,
it's operational.
Operational, yeah.
Not just
there was something similar
the
with professional
policy.
certificate in management years ago. It was a 60 credit, but it consisted of 4 components.
Yeah, no.
And they didn't have their individual credits, but it consisted of 4.
Yeah.
And there's a possibility that it was something like that where it's clear they were separate components,
Yes,
possibly,
definitely.
but I've only ever known that one case.
Yeah, so it's
that's definitely
So it's something we would love to, but like you said,
Yeah.
to be able to put that in operation.
That sort of structure with the components, that's what H880, the one on Future looks like, isn't it? But that's actually in separate components.
Oh, okay.
That actually works pretty much like that.
Can I just quickly add
Yeah.
that whole issue about awarding smaller chunks of credit is exactly what we were kind of grappling with the work someone 30 module, making your own account. I know that's kind of not the purpose of the session today, but I'm going to do a shameless plug. There is a quality enhancement lunchtime seminar on tomorrow lunchtime if people want to come and find out more about that module, and we can maybe discuss that in more detail about how we.
Because that module is going to come into play with experiential learning in the second part of the workshops.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Can I say with course systems replacement, if we were to have more registration-based, or sorry, qualification-based registration, the need for 30 credits as being the minimum size chunk would no longer be valid. So there may be changes in the opinion.
Great.
Okay, question 5. So, do we award credit for prior learning if they are given stage exemption through direct entry? No. Do we? No. So, we don't yet. So, it is true that credit will not be transferred or awarded for prior learning when a student is given stage exemption through direct entry. So that's one of the key differences that kind of exists between the credit transfer and the direct entry. Question number 6. I should have memorised these, shouldn't I? What's question number 6?
So RPL credits can be awarded at FHEQ level 6, which is only level 3, in the final stage of the qualification. Is that true or false?
False.
Absolutely false.
RPL credits will not be awarded for the final stage of the qualification. I have to underline this, there are exceptions.
There are always exceptions.
There are always exceptions unless it is where qualification regulations specifically allow. Question number 7.
So question number 7 was about timescales. So credit transfer will only be awarded if prior study has been completed within a timescale appropriate to EOE qualification. But what is the maximum age of prior study that can be considered for credit transfer at the Open University? 5, 10, 12 or 16 years?
What did each table say? What did you say?
I said 16. We were having a debate.
16.
No, but you definitely didn't say 16.
16. 16. You all got it right.
It should be 12.
However,
that's what the policy
obviously,
was. No,
the different regulations.
No, you don't reduce it.
Different programs will have their own rules on that, but 16 is the maximum amount of time. Question number 8.
So this is a stats question. I love stats. If you're interested in any stats towards a particular qualification, then please email me. But overall, to the nearest thousand, how many students received a credit transfer award during 17-18? Was that 2, 4, 6 or 8,000?
What are we going to go with?
We said 6.
We said 8, I think.
We said 6.
We said 8.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So that's a little bit more positive. We
Six.
wished it was 8.
I wished it was.
So we actually processed around 11,000 awards. That was to 6,000 students because they can have multiple assessments and we automatically award towards the experience.
So, how many of these students have already registered, or what percentage have already registered on the module?
So bear in mind we've had the largest presentation, 18J, and we've had 19B. So far at this point, how many of those 6,000 students, what percentage have already registered into an only module? It's either 12, 25, 33 or 46%.
46.
43.
Yep.
Pleased to say there's been a huge increase and 46% of those students have already registered, and that's absolutely amazing to us. There have been the odd presentation, the lowest we've ever seen is 10%, normally it averages out around 1 in 4, so 25%. A huge increase. There's been all sorts of things going on this year with campaigns. The heads of student success have been involved with SSTs, contacting credit transfer, students who receive credit transfer awards over the last 2 years, actively promoting credit transfer, trying to turn them into registrations. There's all sorts of things. The faculties, from the outcome of the last LPL workshop, has really promoted credit transfer, and academic assessors awarding the maximum amount of credit transfer, because what we've said to them is, what we'll do is look at, if you award the maximum, we will look at the support we can give credit transfer students to help them be successful in their studies and progress. So there's all sorts of factors there, and fantastic IAG being given out by credit transfer team. There's all sorts of things, and we're hoping to be able to sustain that, to continue with this. And I'll talk a little bit more about what we have in place with student support for credit transfer students a little later. But we're really pleased with that.
Final question.
So what percentage of new framework graduates in 17-18 had credit transfer in their profile? So this was either 20, 33 or 58%.
So we think 33.
We had 33 again.
Yeah.
20.
You would be correct, it was 20%. So 20% of the new French graduates had credit transfer in their profile.
It's something we really want to work on, yes. And I think with an increase of, we have in fact had 10% more students in 17-18 apply for credit transfer. The knock-on effect is all the work involved in trying to get them registered, that's going to increase. It's a knock-on effect, so that's where the area that we want to look at. If we were to look at the open degree alone, obviously it's much higher than that, it's around 60%. But this is all qualifications across the OU. So. And what would make a big impact on here is if we award, if a student transfers in 240 credits and we only award 120, they're going to we're going to lose that student. They're going to go to another university that's going to offer them 240. We've lost that particular student. So it really does start at the beginning. It starts about the award for credit transfer to allow them to progress.
What we're going to show you, if anybody, as Tanya said, and the same goes for me, if you've got any further questions that you'd like, or more information that you'd like, particularly kind of this, yeah, no worries, that has kind of raised any questions, please feel free to email myself or Tanya, with anything from the workshop. So we're just going to give you a bit of an overview of some of the activity that has gone on. We've got a little bit, some stats here, so I hope you're okay with stats. Just to kind of give you an idea. So the first graph here shows you the number of credit transfer applications processed.
So you can actually see here that in 17-18, you can see the increase. We've had a 10% increase in students applying for credit transfer, which is fantastic. It's been a real strain on the credit transfer team, and we've really had to pull together with fantastic leadership of Ellie Ogram, because we didn't have the resource for that extra increase. So we've really had to pull together to make sure, because for those that don't know, for PEAK, so for those students that want to study in our biggest presentation, 18J, they have to have their application in by a certain date, and it's a guaranteed assessment date. It's normally around the middle of August, and it allows us 4 weeks to process their application. We've got to get it out to the faculty, the academic assessors need to assess that, we've got to get it back, turn around the correct support to the student, all within a 4-week window. So pleased to say, we managed it. Well done, Ellie and the team. Processed the 12,950. Bear in mind, that was there was so that was for 7,190 students, because on their application they put a multiple award. They wanted to be assessed towards more than one named degree. We automatically assessed them towards the open degree. It would also include those that are just interested in the open degree. That's all they put in their application. So we're liking those stats, that's great.
And
then out of those students, I would say around 70% receive a credit transfer award. The other 30%, there is a small percentage that goes over to reassess. They don't receive credit transfer. The academic assessor looked at the learning outcomes, couldn't map it against the OU study. If that happens, we would still award them towards the open degree. We'd still give them credit towards the open degree. For the open degree, it's not subject specific. We don't need to worry about the mapping the learning outcomes. We're looking at its eligible study, there's sufficient credits, it's at the appropriate level, and we award credit. So they would still be included in the percentage. So the 30% that we can't award for would be for those applications that don't meet the criteria. So they've submitted an application, they've not read the supporting evidence, and they've got study at FE level. It's not hybrid. We're looking at FHEQ level 4 as a minimum, which is OU level 1, or possibly they didn't submit all the correct evidence that we require. So for a number of reasons, 30% of those wouldn't be processed. So we actually made 11,296 awards to 5,937 students. And again, just to reiterate that 46% of those students have now gone on to study, which is great. That will keep increasing. I'm going to keep an eye on the 17-18. This group of students, the ones that receive the award, and we're going to look again at the next presentation and see how it increases.
This is something that I thought might be quite interesting, just to show you in terms of the kind of prior qualification that students are coming in with. So it is incomplete degrees, is the kind of leading the way there, with kind of HNDs, HNCs coming closely after that. So it is good. We are providing an avenue for people to complete their studies, so they don't kind of have to give up. If their circumstances change, which I know was raised as one of the benefits of kind of RPL to students. So I think that is a real kind of positive.
Do you have that data split by qualification?
No. Okay. No.
Can do.
If
you're interested in a particular qualification, I can do that for you. Yeah. Not right now, but yeah. Just want to reiterate there. So there we've captured the main bulk of study coming in. We've got professional bodies, completed degrees, incomplete degrees, foundation degrees, HNCs, HNDs, undergraduate certificate and diplomas, MVQs, SVQs, postgraduate certificates and diplomas, and master's degree. I think it's really important to mention here that incomplete degrees brings in around 50% of the credit transfer applications. So there's a real market there, and that includes overseas as well. I'll talk about that in a little while. So I'd say out of all the awards processed, around 9% are for overseas study. But for incomplete degrees, there's all sorts, it shows a real market there for, it's not just financially why they would need to leave a conventional university. Sometimes, obviously, it is academic, but they're not enjoying what they're studying, they're struggling and want to move to something else. But what we're finding is a lot of students, a big proportion, is university life just not for them. So it's really important that when they come to the OU in a completely different learning environment, without that peer support, that we are supporting these credit transfer students. So I know my son, academically he'd be fine at university, socially university life just won't be for him. My daughter's completely different, extremely confident, not only go to university, she'll go to the one furthest away from home. So it's really important that we support credit transfer students coming into the OU.
Another one that I wanted to show you was the age profile, just so that you can kind of get an idea of how old they are. And this is for kind of the academic year 2017-18. So the highest kind of age group there is 21 to 25, which kind of makes sense when you're thinking about incomplete degrees. So they might have perhaps left university or and then decided to come back, or they might change their mind, perhaps done a university, a degree, and then decided to change, their pathway. So I thought that was quite interesting, just to show you the sort of age of these credit transfer students. And then finally, one thing that I thought I was really keen to show you was for the students that graduated with a classification. What I've done here is I've just wanted to show you the classification. So students with no credit transfer, those with 120 credits of credit transfer, and those with 240 credits, just to see how they do in comparison to students with no credit transfer. And if you can see, in terms of first degrees, those with no credit transfer do tend to come out with more first than those with 240 credits, but those with 120 credits, there's a slightly higher percentage that are coming out with first degrees. When we look at kind of 2-2s, the no credit transfer, 2-1s, the credit transfer students, there's more of those coming out with a 2-1. 2-2 tends to be higher for those that have no credit transfer, and with a third, quite interestingly enough, we see those with 120 credits, less of those come out with a third, and those with no credit transfer. So I just wanted to I think that's really positive actually, a positive thing to show in terms of the classifications that they are achieved.
Can I ask a question about that? Would you have, obviously this is, our no credit transfer people incorporates the people who have particularly low prior educational qualifications. I was wondering whether we have anything equivalent to that is corrective for that, because the people with the credit transfer generally will have 2 A levels or better. It would be interesting to compare that with people who have 2 A levels or better and have no credit transfer.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely something that to look at in kind of future.
At the moment, we do ask any updated the application form to include a further education study. So although we don't ask for evidence, we thought it's important to capture the A levels they have. So when it's being assessed for academic judgment, whether we're, the academic assessor's happy for them to go to stage 2, at least they can see their foundation. At the moment, we can't get MI on that. There's no system, but that is something that we're hoping with core systems.
Yeah,
that's absolutely something that we would like to capture in there, so we could pull that data.
Yeah. I wasn't thinking again specifically for the credit transfer people, because they've got something, but the no credit transfer, there'll be a huge variation between people who've already got first degrees at high classifications, doctorates, and people who've got not a GCSE to their name, and so we're not quite comparing that with life.
No, but marketing could probably get that information.
That'll be interesting.
Because I do believe that is captured in part of the script, so those students that come into the
it's part of registration. It is. They ask what's their highest level of study.
The information is certainly there, so it's really interesting to compare those pie charts.
Absolutely.
Just in the same vein, I think it's worth bearing in mind that credit transfer is actually quite a broad term as well, because that includes both people who have successfully completed qualifications and who are bringing that in, and also people who have not been successful, for example, in completing a qualification at another university and are bringing some credit in. Yeah. So actually I think it would be worth looking at how the students who are bringing in complete qualifications, how do they perform in terms of degree classification.
We do know that we're not confident that actually associate lecturers are informed if any students in their group have credit transfer, so that's something part of student support that we'll be looking at. So just in case, because it helps towards them studying, it helps with their grade, and that's part of student support, isn't it? Something that we'll be taking forward so we can properly support them in their studies.
Just a quick observation on that one, that even if the AL's not directly informed, they do have access to their record, and obviously a new framework student will, if they've got level 1 missing, via the direct entry or credit transfer, so they are in a position to assess it for a new framework student.
Okay, can I just add to that, as an AL, what we are informed of is that the students applied for credit transfer, but not the outcome.
Right, okay, that's, we suspected that, didn't we? So that's something that we've been taking forward.
I'm going to
thank you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Do you actually look at progression for students who've got credit transfer? So there we're looking at students who've actually succeeded, but do you have any figures for students with credit transfer who've actually made it to the end of their degree?
We absolutely could get that. Strategy and information are happy to provide that. So if you want to contact me after timing.nu.
Do you have it split by different qualifications?
Can do. They can provide that. Yes, absolutely. They provided that for a number of staff last year that were interested in a particular.
I was just going to say we've looked at that in Scotland in terms of Scottish HN qualifications, so HNCs and HNDs. Yeah. So we've looked at the pass rate, completion rate for students within those qualifications, that is generally higher than the average.
Yeah, it does. I mean, can't give you the actual stats, but it is proven that credit transfer students are more likely to progress.
Last year, I wasn't here at the last workshop, but I know there was quite a bit of discussion about student support. So Tanya's just going to give an update of the kind of work that has happened since then. So I'll kind of hand it to you when you need it.
The credit transfer team noticed that every year there seemed to be there were certainly inconsistencies with the approach to awarding credit, and that's something amongst the faculties. and also that the awarded credits were, there was a massive reduction in the amount of credit that was being awarded. So we looked into that, and I think what it was with the curriculum review, there was obviously huge pressures on the faculties with success rates, and I think it was proven, not massive amount more, but it was proven that credit transfer students are slightly less successful in certain, let's say, level 3 modules, and I think there was apprehension there to actually award a full stage exemption because credit transfer students might struggle. So what we started looking at doing was, what can we do for these credit transfer students? Is there anything we can help them to be successful? Anything more than we're doing now to allow them to progress? And this would give the academic assessors more confidence in giving full stage exemption. So I mentioned earlier, if a student was transferring in a DIP-HE, so Diploma of Higher Education, they've already successfully completed 120 credits at level 1 and 120 credits at level 2 at conventional university. And we assess it towards a named degree, and let's say this is just an example here. The HND was in sport and fitness. Now, I know sport and fitness always give the maximum amount of credit, but let's say they only awarded 120 at one. The chances are that student will go to another university that's going to give them, and we've lost that student. So we're trying to encourage that, but we also want to give them, the academic assessor, the confidence in that these credit transfer students will be successful, they will progress, and they won't affect the stats that you're being measured on.
So Tanya, yes. You're kind of, I'm just trying to get under the skin of that, because you said earlier that they're more likely to progress, they're more likely to succeed.
If they receive, they get the recognition of their credit that they've studied outside. So if they've done 240 credits, but we said we only award them 120, they're not going to want to study at the OU, they don't want to lose.
No, I get that, that's not what I meant. I meant, if they're more likely to succeed, what was causing, surely the stats would tell the academics the story that you're articulating. So why were they thinking?
It varies across subjects and faculties. I'm aware that there's one subject where there is a problem when they come to 240 credits, and they do tend to struggle.
Right.
That's
what I was trying to I'm going to move into that. The ones where we don't have the stats on those that don't take up the offer on the low amount of credit. The ones where they are more likely to progress are because they've received the maximum amount of credit and they're registered at the OU.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I just wondered why. I think you've answered.
Yeah,
I'm sorry for your name.
Yeah.
I was thinking, what if you have the stats?
Yes.
You know, you would assume that you wouldn't need to make the argument in the faculty, but obviously there are exceptions.
Yeah,
where
and
it's
I'll
not so
talk
neat.
about that. So what we felt, we massively looked at let's say the open degree, because here we could have somebody studying 240 credits in a particular area, come to the OU, study the open degree and go for a completely different curriculum at level 3. So naturally it could be this credit transfer student struggling there. So it was looking into what can we do to help these students. The SSTs don't feel equipped to be able to help credit transfer students because they don't have access to the information, the prior study. They come through to the credit transfer team individually. So the first thing was, I'm not sure who's familiar with Voice. It's a great system, and obviously for anybody using it, when you go in and you put the student's PI number, it gives the whole record of the students. So you can see all the service requests. I know I talk really fast. So what we decided, it'd be really helpful, any request from a student is captured in the service request in Voice. So we thought it would be great if we capture everything to do with the student's credit transfer award, their prior study, in a Voice service request that SSTs can have a look in. So if they are contacted by a credit transfer student wanting advice, guidance, information, to help and support them, to equip them to be able to put that student on the right qualification and the right module, they can be confident to access the service request, and there'll be categorisation so they'll be able to easily identify it. And it will have everything in there, so they'll be able to see that the student received 240 credits, it was in this particular area, it will capture everything to do with the assessment, so any academic assessor's comments, recommendations, maybe there's a module that an assessor has recommended the student starts with, everything will be captured in a voices. So we're hoping to start this next month. It will reduce the AHTs, so the average handling times for the team, but it's a great investment, especially during peak, to know that the SSTs will feel supported and be able to give out the right information.
Can I ask you something on that? So it might be worth picking up on it outside of the meeting because we've got an opportunity for some funding to help with retention and progression. So now that we've got that data, like you said, particularly for the open degree, it's an issue when students are changing subjects. And my understanding is until now, we've never been able to identify in any systems terms whether a student is switching subjects between their credit transfer and their open study. So I think there's a real opportunity there. So
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Helen. Also, just to mention that, for example, I'm aware that there are some particular science modules that, if open degree students study at level 3, the success rates are greater than those. So there's all sorts of meetings going on at the moment. Yes, we can give more information out to the SSTs to support the students, but just bear in mind what we can also do, even if it's an existing module and it's been in presentation for a number of years. I found out from the business manager qualifications, there's 2 of them, that we can introduce prerequisites. It might also be, or an entry check, or just some sort of marker to stop the students registering online on particular modules where we have issues, so they come through to the OU first and make sure that all those talks and everything's been had. So if there are particular modules that you're concerned about and credit transfer students are being able to register online with them, please contact me and we can have a meeting with the business managers, the qualification business managers as well, just to look at all the options available. We can look at whether it's possible to put in prerequisites. So what would actually happen there, instead of a credit transfer student being able to register online on a particular level 3 module, we have that discussion first. We look at their credit transfer award and make sure they tick the criteria that you set. It doesn't have to be a formal system prerequisite where they must do a particular module, but there could be a set of criteria that you want an OU member of the staff to check before they register. There's all sorts of things there. Student home and module chooser. Credit transfer, when awarded, is all built behind the scenes and in the completion rules. It slots into module chooser in the place that obviously where it needs to be. So once they've received the credit transfer award, we invite them to go on student home, and in module chooser they will see exactly where they're awarded credit. So they will see that they've met the requirements of stage 1 and then gone to stage 2. What we would like ideally is for students that are registering on the qualification that there's some form of landing page for credit transfer students. I'm aware that there's going to be one with Mary Keys, and I know Helen's been in discussions with her, that engineering are looking at this to give support for credit transfer students on engineering qualifications. And I think that's going to be a number of months, but it's certainly something that I can, once we have that we could use. That's kind of almost like a pilot, that would be great for majority of qualifications.
I think the issue, because we would really like to do something specific for open degree students as well, and I think where we got to, and I know I've had conversations with Ellie and you over the last few months, which has been put on the back burner a little bit, but the issue was around when students when credit transfer students that aren't registered for OU study get access to, for example, the qualification websites.
Yes.
Because that's potentially where we would want to host it, but there's no point in us putting it there if the students that need it can't access that system. So I think that was being investigated, and I don't know whether it's changed now, because I know the intention from colleagues in what was LTI translation was that that students who hadn't yet registered for a module would be able to then access the qual site.
Right, okay.
So I think there's just something. I haven't caught up with Mary recently about it, but it'd be interesting to know whether she's had any further conversations.
Yeah.
That was certainly an issue stopping us doing that.
Yeah.
There's also something about induction in that space as well. So Ellen and I had a few conversations along with other colleagues around making sure that those students have induction to the OU as well, so that they're not coming in from a different institution and then having to pick up not only a different way of studying but also some really practical things. So becoming an OU student book, being able to have that as well, that they can make sure that they can get around student home, for example,
Absolutely.
I mean, in a way that's even more important for a credit transfer student.
Yeah, that's a particular concern I have. Both, I mean, I'm an AL as well as on module teams and all the rest of it. But the biggest concern I have is the students being picked up, and if they're coming in at level 2, level 3, the module design and the tutoring will be based around the assumption that students in that group have an acquaintance and knowledge of what they're doing. And getting up to speed actually gets in the way of learning.
And we have the same issue with open degree students. They're
Big time
switching
to have that, yeah.
subjects, it's not just credit transfers.
It's really, you want to be encouraging them to do it ahead of, ideally well ahead of actually starting their module, so
But it then
making
starts
more
getting
of a,
quite complex in terms of messaging. You send me up and that was dealt with through
That's-
support.
yeah.
A lot of
That's something we
universities will
brought
have
up when we were
physical
talking about service
for
requesting
credit
for students getting that background because they weren't doing a level 1 induction module, that something else we could put in place.
Yeah, this is really great capturing everybody's ideas, thank you. Also, just to Ellie's fab, Ellie Owen, credit transfer team manager is fab. She's constantly looking at credit transfer communications. What we're trying to do is no waffle, just making it clear, as clear as possible. It's all part of improving the customer experience. It used to be very complex to apply for credit transfer. We're hoping we stripped that out and made it much easier. It will get easier with core systems. Hopefully students will finally be able to apply for credit transfer electronically. That will be part of supporting that, which again increases efficiencies, but it's all about improving the customer experience. So.
Just with my specific area hat on, there's enough communication from different people with different roles, different job titles that students are encountering. I would suggest that it's done through the existing channels, not as a separate thing.
Yeah,
For many of
absolutely.
these, it's particularly difficult to deal with the difference between a modular tutor and a practice tutor, where their roles sit in EDM and everybody else. To throw something else into the mix is just going to cause confusion, and I'd like to keep it as clear and straightforward as possible.
Yeah. I mean, at the moment, with apprenticeship qualifications, that's almost our pilot. They are applying electronically, so they upload their credit transfer application via the portal, and that generates an automatic SR, service request invoice, that I then pick up. Hasn't been rolled out to the credit transfer team, it will do once numbers start picking up. So that's almost like our pilot, our baby for electronic processing, and we're hoping to eventually roll that out to all credit transfer students. Because at the moment it's quite mechanical, they still send original evidence via the post. We have an electronic back-end process. Anybody assessing applications for credit transfer, if you don't want them to see them in the post, contact us, we welcome electronic processing. We're happy to do that via voice or any other form of electronic processing. So I believe that we do some via Outlook, I'm not sure, is it all done through voice now?
Trying to get through.
Okay, so sometimes within voice we will email an application to an email address, or sometimes it's a queue. We would always recommend queues within voice because then it's picked up by other areas if you're not in. But if you're interested in that, if you're receiving paper copies and you would prefer them sent electronic, then please get in touch and let us know. And just to say also, credit transfer website, I'm the credit transfer website owner. I'm very lucky to have Ellie on board who's constantly reviewing the website just to make sure that everything on there is clear to improve the customer experience. There's no waffle. We have to regularly update it. We advertise massively on the front page our guaranteed assessment date. So to manage students' expectations, we say to them they must get their application in by this date. It's not a cut-off. If we manage to process everything that's coming before that date, we carry on processing. So it's not a cut-off, but it is a guarantee that we need that application in by a certain date if you want to start from this presentation. So I think I probably waffled on enough.
Thank you very much for that, Tanya. Just on kind of student support, myself and Tanya's heavily involved in it, but we run an RPL focus group, a quarterly focus group, and the next one that we're running in March is going to focus purely on student support. So if there's anybody here that would like to come along, the idea of the workshop will be to talk about what we offer, what support they get, what induction they get at the minute, and then to try and identify where we can improve it. So if anybody would like to attend, please drop us an email. You're on the attendee list already. So please drop me an email and I'll add you to the.
Oh, we have biscuits!
Of course, there are biscuits generally there, and there were mince pies before Christmas, I will say. Okay, I'm just going to give you just before I invite Steve up, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of some of the activity. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, just to give you an idea of some of the things that I've kind of been up to since I started here at the Open University. So one of the key kind of parts of my role, one of the first pieces of work that I did was the development of progression and articulation agreements. So as you know, I work within Open University Validated Partnerships, so we validate kind of qualifications with partner institutions. And articulation agreements kind of comes up quite naturally with those, particularly for partners that are developing foundation degrees, where they kind of are required to have some considered progression for their students. So it was with a validated partner that this piece of work kind of initially came up. But there are two different types of agreements. We have progression and we have articulation agreements. So progression being the more informal agreements that exist. So a piece of work that I've been doing is with Pearson. So Pearson, the HNC provider, have what they call a degree finder. So I got approval through the Open Board of Study to advertise the open degree next to all of their HNCs and HNDs. What that does is it doesn't guarantee the students a place on our courses, but what it does is it advertises our courses, and it means that those students could apply. So they go through the same channels as a credit transfer student, but what it is doing is it's putting our courses out there. I've got interest from the sports team, from Q76, to also be added next to the HNDs in sports. So once it's kind of up there and visual with the open degree, I will be looking to potentially have more named degrees up there. So that's kind of a progression agreement there. It's not formalised. It's an informal agreement, which means that we are advertising our courses next to those HNDs and HNCs.
Claire, can I just ask if we're able to track that?
What, in terms of
in terms of the traffic from that website through to
once it's
through to inquiries and
registration, we will look at that. Yeah, it's not ready yet, but once it is there, it will be. So that's kind of an informal agreement, which I think is a really positive one. Particularly with Pearson qualification, they're internationally recognised qualifications, and we do get, as you'll see a lot with our prior qualification for credit transfer students, HNDs and HNCs are this kind of second highest prior qualification. So that's kind of an informal version. When we go on to articulation agreements, we become more formalised. And so this is where we get a formal agreement between two institutions that entitles the students that satisfy those academic criteria to be admitted onto the course at the articulating institution. So the first one that I set up is with Belfast Met, who's one of our validated partners. So they will complete 2-year foundation degree at Belfast Met, one of, I think it's cyber security and cloud and cyber security. So they'll complete one of either, and then they will articulate onto either the Q68 BSc Honours top up in IT and computing, or onto the BABSc Honours open degree at level 3. So with this, it's a formal agreement, so it's a signed, there's no kind of exchange of money or anything like that, but it is a signed contract, so there is an annual review with that. But what that does is that means that the colleges or kind of the partners can advertise that to their prospective students, and they can come along and join us in the third year. I've got a few more that are kind of in the pipeline. The one that is kind of closest to be ready is with Southwest College, which is that, I believe, might be a partner college coming onto the books, but they are kind of going down through as a in the first instance as a non-validated partner. But that is going on to Q76, which is sport. So there are more and more of these kind of coming to light. So in your particular areas, if this is something that kind of comes up, then please do get in touch with me. Has anybody got any questions on kind of those? The nice thing is it's quite a straightforward process to actually set up because the agreement is in place. But we have, it is very new, and the Belfast agreement is just the first one that we've kind of had formalised.
I guess it's worth saying that there are also people in the EU doing linked work around this kind of partnership and articulation. And in some instances there may be a commercial basis as well. There may be paid referral agreements. So in a more kind of commercial context. But presumably, I mean, it's the same kind of options, either kind of more informal or more formal, kind of precedent award, whatever, articulation.
Yeah, and that's what will happen with this particular agreement. A precedent award wasn't required, but with the South West College for Q76, what will happen will be the development of the precedent award so that it can be operationalised within the
You have to have very close curriculum mapping.
Yes. And with the Southwest, I mean, there was a lot of curriculum mapping that took place with Belfast Met and the foundation degrees. And what actually happened there was there was also licensing that kind of was included there, because what the team here felt was that the foundation degrees didn't quite cover everything that the students needed, so there was further arrangements that were put in place there. With Q76, it's quite a straightforward. There wasn't a huge amount of mapping that needed to go on, because there was only 2 modules at level 3 that the students would complete here, so it was a little bit more straightforward.
In terms of mapping, curriculum mapping, so obviously the example, so Peter and I were involved in the Belfast example with you, and clearly curriculum mapping for the open degree is very different to a named degree as well. So I guess going forward, it would be great if the open degree could be considered. I don't know if it's being considered in that Southwest arrangement, but just as a kind of going forward, a bit like the credit transfer awards, always being assessed against the open.
And with the Belfast one, we would automatically give it the credit towards the open.
Yeah, but just in terms of new partnerships, either through BDU or through faculties,
and
it would be really good to consider that.
I think I automatically will talk about the open degree and I will mention it. But depending on the number of students, I think some there's a potential that some wouldn't necessarily want to open it up to the open degree as well.
Of course, there might be situations where they want to direct students specifically to a qualification, which is fine.
But under most circumstances, yes, the open degree. And actually, the kind of partners that I've had conversations with do mention the open degree as an option as well. Just before I do hand over to Steve, I just wanted to to briefly go through. I know some of you have probably heard this before in various different members of the focus group, but just to give you an overview of kind of what's happened. So we have had the direct entry policy review has now been approved by Education Committee. So the core changes now. So for direct entry, the full qualification, including any compensated, condoned, or any credit that was gained by the external institution through recognition of prior learning, will be recognised as part of an individual's qualification, unless there's PSRB requirements that stipulate that it can't be. What that means from a credit transfer point of view is that they only need to see the certificate. They're not scrutinising the transcript, because we're accepting the whole qualification. Recognised kind of certificated qualifications that are suitable for direct entry will be identified by the relevant board of studies and approved by the teaching committee. So it will be all faculty driven and program driven. It won't be kind of me pushing for these direct entry qualifications. It will be kind of identified within faculties in terms of what qualifications they're happy to have. A list of them will be kept internally. It will be maintained within the Credit Transfer Centre, similar to what we have now for for President Awards, and they will be subject to kind of annual review. So that's kind of what's going to happen. The qualifications that we can accept. So we expanded on this footnote within the policy to make sure that it was as inclusive. So when I actually took it to QAC, the Qualifications and Assessment Committee, this was the one thing that comment that they made, was to make sure that we are inclusive to the widest range of qualifications possible. So it is any higher education provider with degree awarding powers, a higher education provider that delivers validated qualifications, an awarding organisation that appears on the Ofqual register, a recognised international or European higher education provider that is listed on UK NARIC, and a professional institution whose qualifications have undergone credit assessment by the university. So for example, there's a little bit of work going on in relation to the College of Policing, so that would kind of be where a professional institution where we would have credit assessed their qualifications. So those are the kind of range of qualifications that we can accept for direct entry. So we're hopeful that we have been as inclusive as possible. And in terms of implementation, it's not going to be open to all programmes in the first instance. So we are piloting it through the open programme. From a kind of CSR requirements point of view, myself and Tanya put some requirements through to have the capability for students to enter at level 1, level 2, level 3. So the qualifications will be set up, rather than being set up as 360 credit qualifications now, there will be different kind of versions of those, so that students can enter. That's obviously to come with the CSR requirements. What we need to do is have kind of an interim plan to get this operationalised sooner than when the CSR comes in. So the interim plan is to create dummy not for registration direct entry modules, codes to facilitate direct entry onto stage 2 or 3 of the programme.
Can I just say,
of course,
I've been dealing with dummy module codes for the last 2 years, and the biggest nightmare out, so please be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we are, what we...
I have to say, Mike, I might contact you, if you don't mind, tomorrow, just to draw from your experience, if that's okay.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, no,
we are in the process now in terms of, I mean, what we've kind of proposed is we want it to have a similar function as collaborative modules. So an example there, that kind of, the sort of thing that a collaborative module does, where the credit transfer team, my wording is correct, are able to register and complete a student on that module. So it's the same kind of thing that we want for direct entry. We are in the process now of trying to secure some IT resource, and myself and Tanya need to put a vision, is it a vision statement? Together, and a project proposal. So it's work in progress, and hopefully we'll have that running for the open programme for kind of the next.
I think from my limited knowledge of dummy module codes, the purpose of this and the way this would function is quite different to the dummy codes that are used for like qualification registration and various issues like that. So I don't know if they're the ones that you deal with, but it's kind of, as you've said, it's the only way we can do it until CSR comes in.
Yeah, so. I would seriously advise against using dummy codes.
Well, we wouldn't be using it. We wouldn't be using it. There was another option, but we can't also wait 4 years.
There's a lot of things that you don't. One of them I've just been dealing with this morning.
Yeah, and I'll contact you tomorrow. I mean, hopefully the core systems. Obviously, we will be able to, from the system, be able to say stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. With the current systems, because it's all built, it's 360 credit qualifications. With the curriculum systems, all 360 credits. We need something to go in and block out module chooser. So when the student looks online, they can see they've met the requirements of stage 1, and the only way to do that at the moment is to fulfil that with a module. So it will be a module, the same module for all qualifications. Everybody can easily recognise that as a direct entry module that's built into the curriculum systems that will obviously meet the requirements of each award course group within the curriculum systems. It could come, further down the line that actually something stops us from doing this, and we do have to wait for core systems, but we thought it was worthwhile to, see if there's a possibility with our current systems that we could do this and support it as soon as possible.
Before I invite Steve up, I was just going to see if people wanted a comfort back break. Do people, I know we've got so should we say 10 minutes? Yes. Start again at 10 to, yeah? I don't know if there's any tea or coffee left outside, but
I left my house at 6 o'clock to come in. It was started late. It was only Birmingham, but by the time you get from my house to the station,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but nobody's asking questions.
Oh, okay. Okay. Brilliant. Oh.
Just to let you know, I need to leave just at 12. So
No problem. Thank you.
no, it's all right.
And you're going to
Yes, I've got. Yeah, I have put it in my diary.
I'm willing to.
Yeah, no, that'll be really good.
It'll be a very just kind of like a thought sharing. What do we offer?
Yeah, no, that'll be
the start of
doing quite well timed drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I might catch up with you ahead of that.
Yeah,
Just to
brilliant.
see what we could be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's March, isn't it?
Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, so it might be worth us actually meeting.
Isn't it? So yeah, it might be good to meet.
Yeah.
It's we can just look at what we can be doing. Would it be? Because I know Delhi is. So I think it's kind of comms and getting students to. I'm sort of concerned whether that's happening or not. So
Yeah, it's like with the Mills intervention.
Yeah.
Because I'm not, although they say the Mills intervention, they are for new OU students, I don't know whether that means
Yeah.
level.
Has there been any
one.
analysis about
Not
whether?
to my knowledge. I mean, that I think will come out as something that needs to be looked at in the focus group, because they obviously if it is just looking at OU level 1, we are then going to be excluding all of the new students coming on to level 3. But yeah, that's something.
Yeah, I mean we could do just a run of 19 students we've got.
Yes.
Transfer, just have a look at what comes to you.
I think that's a good idea. Should I put something in the diary?
Yes,
To me?
yeah, that'd be good.
Let's
Yeah,
have a look at what
maybe,
we
yeah.
have.
Because I mean, somebody might even have that information.
That might be quite good to have a look at before the workshop.
Yeah, to actually get a picture
Yeah,
of
to get a picture of that.
what they're
because I know
likely to
that
have
will
got.
come up. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, are the students? Are they new students? Are they a mix of? You know, how long? Are they all like 19J students or 18J students, or are they?
What in terms of
for the workshop?
In terms of students coming.
Yeah,
there is
a
a
mix.
mix.
Yeah.
We haven't got any students coming to the focus group.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Oh,
so
sorry.
it was no. What I want to do initially, my plan is to.
Oh, right. Sorry, I'll probably misunderstood.
To have a
sorry.
sorry,
No, I've done the time.
Yeah. So what I run is a quarterly focus group that brings in. Although I know Catherine and some others.
I know.
Are going to come.
Yeah.
So we have some students that come in.
Well, yeah.
I wish I'd got what I do want to do is once we've identified what we provide, I want to make it into a focus group, which might be something that might be worth us doing.
Yes, I think
Just to kind of
find
out whether it's enough, whether they want more, what we.
Because I think the thing about I have to appreciate how many of them are younger students who've literally just come out of brick uni, effectively. So,
well,
in terms of if they need something slightly different.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's important that we do capture them and ensure that we some of the support is that they feel as well.
Okay, so the focus group is more kind of bringing together. So is there people from the SSTs?
So we have. I'm constantly trying to increase the number of people here. So we have representations from faculty, and then what really the idea of focus group really is to kind of share good practice and talk about RPL related activity. So student support with one of the gender, but we also onto it. So have it as a nice like an hour and a half to I've got Maria, one of the heads of student success, Maria. It could be, yes, she's coming along. So I know she's available. So if there's any, I just think when I send out the invite, if there's anybody else that you think would be worth being there, so they're kind of.
Well, I'll look at who's on there, but because it might just be so that it's more so there's a head student support for like they're called dental interpreters who actually send out the meals and do all the selections and things, but whether they yeah, I mean what I tend to, you might want to reach out to those 4 heads of student support, so like institutional sets, asking them kind of because they work slightly differently.
Heads of student support.
Yes.
They're different roles. So they're
So they're like
right,
so they kind of effectively manage this team. So it could be worth just asking them, you know, to make what the workshop is, because it could be the data presenters who actually send out the meals, but some of them work very differently.
Yes,
They might have sort of senior managers who are able to come there. That's like those are the heads.
Yes.
Yeah, I could go out rather than group around meals. No, never. It's just sort of one yeah, it's quite yeah. Yeah, so Wells is just STEM is between is Julia.
You rely on someone somewhere.
Yeah, she's used to do a lot but it obviously panic on Friday.
What about who would be someone now that's going to be enhanced?
So I feel like there's maybe a bit of something.
As long as you don't monopolise.
I'm alright, thank you. So yeah, it might not be them.
Even if they send nominated, yeah, no, absolutely. That's fine. I read
So new is coming out of your now.
It's
just that at the moment,
yes,
it's all about change the language, but essentially
How does it work?
yeah, exactly. So I think I wanted to, yeah, that's it. I think when I read the QA, I thought, that's all going to be so integrated.
I mean, yeah,
Need to go anywhere.
she was
And then now it doesn't. Maybe there should be things. Maybe I'll just
but yeah,
in the way it's done.
use more people
But in the actual QD then, whether we should
If we
have a think about just having a section in there that says, you know, you may be assessed differently.
That's it. I think for me it makes sense because like if we set the models, if we and so if it's gone in the regulation, then it's going to make it pretty complex. So I wonder if at least for 19 that's all, if we can get it up and running by then, we just have a and once we're sure that that's process will work. And I just think it might be a big slow wait until Christmas. There'll be much more clear cut-offs, but I'm more confident in being sure.
Yeah, and I mean, there's all sorts of things at the moment.
where really we need something to do it. Yeah, can't wait for them.
No, exactly.
But trying to get any IT resource to do anything.
Yeah.
And they realise that it's not just that.
They do. We're going to be a response from students association.
Okay, well, if you want to chat to me or send me a copy or ask a comment on anything,
What we're going to do is we're going to submit it on our website. We're going to put something out to the CEC.
Yeah, well, I've got loads of slides. If you want to borrow any slides, I'll do it.
I'm going to do that now.
So rather than bringing some of these slides, you probably saw some of these slides.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always forget to see
Yes, a few of the slides which were well
What's the open to repost?
Yeah, I can imagine. Kind of boned up on it first.
Hi folks. Okay. My bit of the day. What I'm proposing to use this slot for is to do something slightly different. Last year I came along to this event and I threw lots of stats at people around RPL in Scotland. One way to do something a bit different, I thought I would talk you through a live example, if you like, of how RPL processes underpin a lot of the partnership work that we do in Scotland, particularly with the college sector. So I'm going to take you through an example of a very live project, a collaborative partnership that we've entered into with Ayrshire College in the south-west of Scotland. A partnership that we've entered into this week, so we signed an agreement with them on Tuesday to undertake this work. We had a big launch event at the college this week. So I'll talk to you a wee bit about how the partnership's developed, what we're doing with the college, and how RPL, credit transfer, precedent awards and so on underpin this work and make it possible. So to give you some context, the context hasn't changed much since I spoke to the group who attended last year. Articulation and progression from college to university in Scotland continues to be a real priority for the Scottish Government and for the Open University in Scotland. For those of you who aren't familiar with the term articulation, articulation is the term that's used very commonly in Scotland to describe the progression of a student who's moving from a higher education level course at a Scottish college, so an HNC or an HND, into a degree level course at a university, such as ourselves. There are around 220,000 students studying in the college sector in Scotland. Around 50,000 of them are students who are taking HE level qualifications, HNCs and HNDs, which in Scotland is about 35% of the market. So in terms of the higher education marketplace in Scotland, the college sector is very significant. There are very large numbers of students proportionally who undertake higher education in colleges. The priority of the Scottish Government around this just now is very much around reducing duplication of level of study. So there's a big Scottish Government, Scottish Funding Council push around working with colleges and working with universities to reduce instances of students undertaking 120 credits worth of study at SCQF level 7, OU level 1 at a college, and then going back into the same level of study, getting into first year university level, or perhaps undertaking a 2-year HND course at a college and then getting into year 1 or perhaps year 2 of a university degree programme. So the government agenda is very much about encouraging universities to allow articulation and progression with full credit transfer. So what they want to see is students who've done HNC programmes, generally speaking, should be going into year 2 of a degree programme. Students who've done HNDs should be going into year 3. The way that that manifests itself really is through the outcome agreements, the contracts that universities have in Scotland with the Funding Council. Higher education in Scotland is still publicly funded, so the vast majority of funding that universities receive is from the public purse through the Funding Council, and the main mechanism for that is the annualised contract or the outcome agreement that the universities have with the Funding Council. And those contracts, those outcome agreements now have very specific targets within them around articulation and progression from colleges. So we at the OU in Scotland have targets both for the number of students that we recruit from colleges generally, but also the number of students that we recruit with HE qualifications and who are achieving full credit transfer. So there's a very strong motivation for universities in Scotland, including ourselves, to really work with colleges, to work with the college sector, to facilitate that movement and that progression of students from HE courses and colleges into the OU. So the work that we do in terms of the OU in Scotland with colleges is very much focused on full credit transfer. We have articulation and progression agreements with all 15 of the large regional college groups in Scotland. So we have formal articulation and progression arrangements, very similar, I think, to the ones that Claire's developing here, that map OU curriculum against HNC and HND qualifications across all subject areas within colleges where we have a corresponding degree programme, and against the open degree as well. So we're fairly far ahead in Scotland in terms of articulation and progression arrangements and working with the college sector. And at the moment we have around 900 students a year with HNCs and HNDs who progress into the OU in Scotland, which might not sound like a huge number, but in the context of other numbers in Scotland, it's about 18% of the OU student population in Scotland are coming to us with HNC and HND qualifications. It's quite a big chunk of the core business. In terms of the relationship with Ayrshire College, we've had a formal articulation and progression arrangement with them since around 2012. We have been working with them on campus-based models of delivery since around 2013, and we have an established social sciences programme that we deliver actually on campus at Ayrshire. That is an articulation programme, so that's also underpinned by RPL, and students who have achieved an HNC qualification in social sciences at the college have the opportunity to come into our social sciences programme at year 2, and the faculty work with the college in a collaborative manner to deliver OU curriculum at level 2 on site on a campus-based teaching methodology. We introduced, so that partnership's been established since 2013 for level 3. We introduced level 2 delivery in 2017, so we've now got some level 2 social sciences delivery as well. For students who've done the HNC, which is great. And really that experience of working with the college around social sciences has led us to this new project, which is around about social work, where we're looking to do something similar with the college in the social work space. So really, the interest that we've had from the college comes from that background, that history of working with them successfully in social sciences. They approached us last year to make a formal request for a campus-based social work programme. The demand for that really comes from the fact that they found that their HNC, HND social services students find it difficult to progress to full-time degree programmes in Scotland. There are a limited number of those places for social work at Scottish universities. They felt their students were being disadvantaged in terms of opportunities for advanced entry. Most of the universities that were offering articulation places were offering a relatively small number of places, and the college was seeing that a relatively small number of their students who were very successful at HNC, HND level were actually getting a place through UCAS on a full-time programme at Scottish University. So they came to us to say that we're working together in social sciences, that's working well, what can we do with them in the social work area? The other interesting thing is that within the social services HNC, HND groups at the college, they have a very high proportion of adult learners in those groups, which again went them to us quite naturally as a partner. So what we've come up with in collaboration with Ayrshire College is a one-year programme of study. HNC social services students can transfer credit towards the Open University's BA social work qualification, and they can come straight in at level 2. So there's an established precedent award, and again this is how it's all underpinned by RPL. Through the articulation and progression arrangements that we have with colleges in Scotland, we already have an established precedent award for the HNC social services qualification to come in to the social work degree at stage 2. So students are getting full credit transfer for 120 credits from their HNC social services qualification.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you. Can I just be clear? Is this a 4-stage qualification?
It is a 4-stage,
480
yeah,
credits?
it is a
Right,
4-stage
okay.
qualification. So to meet the requirements of the SC, it's a 4-stage qualification. So students are coming directly into year 2 with their HNC, and what we're offering really, and this touches on some of the discussion about support earlier on, we're offering them a 1-year transitional programme at the university. So the qualification's a 4-stage programme. The first stage is taken care of through credit transfer from their HNC, which is fully mapped to stage 1, and that's fine. We are offering them a 1-year transitional programme based at the college where they undertake stage 2 of the programme with some taught tutorial support which takes place at the local college. So they undertake the modules with some face-to-face teaching in an environment that they're familiar with. The OU lecturer, the OU tutor, the AL takes those modules and delivers those sessions, is also a college member of staff. So what we've actually done is we've recruited a college lecturer who's familiar to the students, who's worked with them to deliver their HNC programme. They've come on board as an OU-AL and they're delivering on our behalf in the college. So they've got the students a continuity of the place of learning, but also the person who's supporting them, and they have a year to transition into the Open University and get used to our teaching methodology before they then complete stage 3 and 4 of the qualification as an independent OU student. So it's very much about helping them to acclimatise to the learning style with the OU, helping to bridge that gap, that difference between a taught HNC programme at college and the OU's teaching methodology at stages 3 and 4. And the hope is that on completion of the transitional year, students can move into stage 3 of the social work degree and be well prepared for study with us at that level. So the pathway is a 4-year degree, a 4-stage degree. Stage 1 completed through credit transfer. The 2 modules at stage 2 being delivered as part of this transitional project at the college, and then years 3 and 4 being undertaken as an independent OU student. You probably don't need to see too much about the tutorials we're delivering, but effectively the teaching format that we're using is we're running a class, a tutorial once a month at the college, and they're taking place on a sort of afternoon and evening basis. So there's one taught tutorial at the college each month, and they're taking place 3 p.m. to 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the college. The benefits of the integrated pathway for the student is that I've put it there as realistic entry requirements. It's really about the realistic possibility of a place. Because there are so few places available through UCAS, we've been able to work with the college to guarantee up to 20 places on this collaborative model. So we've got a good number of places available for students in the college. We've agreed to pilot it this year, so we'll pilot in 19J with up to 20 students, and then potentially we'll review how many we could potentially take from then on. But based on the interest from students in the college at the moment, it looks as though actually we'll easily fill those 20 places for the pilot. The benefit for the student is they get full recognition of their HNC, so they're not being asked to take a step back and go straight into stage 2. So there's that cost saving for them of not having to go back at the expense of defeating a year of study, and the time saving there as well, obviously. There's a real benefit in terms of the support that the student gets. This is about a supported transition from college to university study, so we're not just asking them to make that change and acclimatise to the OU straight away. We're going to support them over the course of the year to do that, and our college-based lecturer will support them to make that change. The degree programme builds on their previous skills and knowledge from their HNC. It has a strong work-based element because there's placements incorporated within the social work programme as well. And speaking to the students at the college, very much our offer to them is attractive because it gives them that opportunity to combine work and part-time study. The top requirement, the attendance requirement at the college is 1 afternoon stroke evening per month. So it allows them to fit, OU study around their work and their lifestyle. And really there's a benefit to us in terms of closer working relationship between the college and the university. The work that we're doing in social work has came directly from the experience that we have of working with them on social sciences, and already we're speaking to the college about other subject areas where we can potentially work with them as well, to offer both traditional articulation and possibly supported campus-based pathways as well. key things to think about probably in terms of this workshop today. This partnership is completely underpinned by RPL. We would not be in Ayrshire College, we would not recruit these students would not come to us if we were not prepared to offer them full credit transfer for the HNC. And I know Claire and Tanya touched on that earlier on. The expectation in the sector in Scotland is very much, the expectation that students have is very much that their qualification is currency. It's worth 120 credits at level 1. Their expectation when they're shopping around for a degree programme is that they're allowed to enter at level 2. If we were saying to them, well, your 120 credit HNC will give you 60 credits towards an OU qualification, you know, rather than recruiting 20 students, we're probably lucky to get 2 of them. So very much it's about RPL, it's very much about full credit transfer. We've not talked a lot today about President Awards. In fact, I don't think we've touched on that at all. Having a President Award in place allows us to talk to the college with confidence and say, this has been mapped, there is a President Award, we have an arrangement with the Credit Transfer Office that says that this qualification, when a student applies, they will get 120 credits for it. If we didn't have a President Award in place, we wouldn't be able to undertake this activity with the college, because we can't sign students up on the basis that, well, you apply for credit transfer as an individual, and when you do that, you probably get 120 credits. Okay, that wouldn't be a safe ground to develop a partnership on. So the fact that we do have an established President Award for this programme means that we can sign a collaborative agreement saying, not necessarily that students are guaranteed a place, but they can apply, and if they're interviewed for the social work programme and get a place, then they'll get 120 credits for the HNC. So for the students, full credit transfer is the key. Other offers distinct, offers them an opportunity to progress without loss of time. We're learning from our experience of the existing campus-based partnership in social science, and we've been delivering on a campus-based basis with several college partners for a number of years, and we see consistently a higher completion and pass rate for students who come through this pathway. So we've looked back over several years, and we've seen that across the 3 college partners that we have who deliver social sciences-based curriculum, that students who come in with an HNC and HND and undertake some campus-based delivery at the college with a college tutor supporting them as the AL, the pass and completion rate is consistently higher compared to those module cohorts overall. So there is a real benefit to providing that transition support as they make the change from college to OU study. There are some challenges around operational aspects. We have to work with the faculty and with the SSTs to design a smooth registration process for students coming through the college routes, which we don't really need to talk too much about that today. Credit transfer is an issue because obviously students can't apply for credit transfer with the OU until they've actually completed their college qualification, which puts us at a bit of a disadvantage versus other universities who operate conditional offers through UCAS, for example. So you know, that's something we have to manage quite carefully with the college and with the applicants. There are some challenges as well around the timeline for partnership approvals within the OU. We're very fortunate in Scotland that we have strategic funding from the SFC to support this sort of activity. So obviously we're bearing some additional costs, and we're lucky we've got access to strategic funding to make that happen. So we've got a pot of money sitting there to support this activity. We've got a college partner who we have an established working relationship with and who's very keen to develop a programme with us. But the general partnerships approval process within the OU unfortunately is quite slow in terms of the timescales for getting through faculty committees and curriculum partnerships and things like that as well. And the reason I mention that is just from a partner perspective, from the college's perspective, we seem like quite a slow machine. You know, given the fact that the money's there, the students are there, we're all keen to work together. It takes a long time, you know, to bring in a partnership which, you know, ultimately will deliver 20 FTE, you know, on a pilot basis. So really that's an overview, and what I really wanted to do was just highlight the fact that really it's all about RPL. This opportunity to work with colleges, to recruit these students, it's all about prior credit, it's about having that President Award in place, and it's about being able to offer full credit transfer in the full 120 credits. And across all the articulation and progression arrangements that we have with colleges in Scotland, it's the ones where we offer full credit where we're able to attract a substantial number of students. Where we have programmes where, and there's a number of them where we have President Awards, but perhaps they offer 180 credits for the HND, yes, we do work to promote those programmes in colleges, and yes, we do see some number of students coming through, but in terms of market share, it's not really particularly effective. So particularly those of you who are involved in these decisions within faculties, I would say just bear that in mind. As Tanya said, it's very much about full credit transfer is what makes the difference when students actually making a decision on where to go. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about the partnership or
Yeah. How does the practice learning component work in that some of those modules are practice based?
Yeah, and
so does the university
do
you have a specific person in the further education college who manages the practice learning component?
No, that's managed by the faculty in the same way. So the college-based AL effectively is offering the tutorials that would normally be offered online in the college with some face-to-face support.
Okay.
All other aspects of teaching are taken care of by the faculty in the normal way. So students have access to all the OU materials and participate in all the standard OU teaching for that module. The only difference is that we're offering some face-to-face workshops once a month in the college. But the placement is handled entirely by the faculty in the normal way. The college has involved in the placement.
So they have a practice tutor and they go out on
Yeah,
this
absolutely. Yeah, and that all takes place.
Is that all? So there's a manager in the Scottish office who looks after that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Deirdre Fitzpatrick who works. Yeah, who works with that. Yeah.
Must be go back to the slide which had the 4 stages on.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. It's the stage 2 that I was trying to get my head around.
Okay.
What it is, because you've done the RPL for the HNC.
Yeah.
20 credits there. Stage 2 you've got there. I mean, obviously I don't, not my faculty modules, so I don't know what they are, but you've got level 1 and level 2 in there.
Yeah, that's the way that programme's structured. Yeah, so that's.
Are they, because I don't know the credits for those different modules, I'm just trying to.
They're all 60. They're all 60 credits. Yeah.
So they're still doing full 360 credits with the OU, even though they've got 120 credits.
Yeah. So the programme's normally 480 overall.
Okay, so I just wanted to get my head around how that.
Yeah. So for all students taking this kind of campus-based cohort aside, any student who's doing social work with us in Scotland has to follow the 4-stage programme. And stage 2 does have a level 1 and a level 2 module. Yeah. That's just that.
So just clarifying in my own head that, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry. Sure.
Did you do a lot of the mapping of, presumably there, even if the assumption is that you get the 420 points, you still have to do that mapping. Did you do a lot of that in Scotland?
No, that was done. We were working.
The
there was an existing precedent law, so actually there was no additional work to be done because that mapping exercise had already been done. Yeah. So the established process was the established credit transfer mechanism was already the case that students would get 120 credits for that HNC.
Because that's really helpful there, because sometimes I think, because we often are wanting to kind of set up precedent awards or periodically, and the challenge sometimes is the amount of work needed up front to, and obviously I can understand for faculties that can be kind of a lot of work, and there's an expectation that they do it because obviously they're bearing the responsibility in the end. And it's quite difficult, isn't it, in some instances, persuading that there's a value in doing that, because obviously there are other priorities and workload. I think it sounds like you did. That was brilliant that you didn't have to go through that particular.
There are a couple of things to think about there. First of all, what we did do was, unfortunately, the Scottish HNC qualifications, there's some variation in terms of what units colleges actually deliver. So sometimes you will see a 96 credit HNC, for example. So what we, in the precedent award that exists specifically says, for the student to have 120 credits transferred, we need to have 120 credits within the HNC. So we have worked with the college to make sure that the HNC we're delivering is compliant with what we're looking for within the precedent award. The other thing I would say though is that I do appreciate from a faculty perspective that there's a large number of qualifications out there that you could potentially do credit mapping against and have precedent awards for. What we try to do at the OU in Scotland is support the faculties in that process. So in a number of subject areas we are kind of the push factor, if you like. So recently in areas like engineering and computing, for example, we've done the initial work in terms of looking at the marketing opportunity, in some cases actually writing the precedent award proposal for the faculty to take to the teaching committee. So we are happy to support with that, and we can support in the scoping of the opportunity, if you like. We only look to push the faculty to develop precedent award if there's a really significant number of
Yeah,
students doing
yeah,
that,
that's
doing
really
that qualification in Scotland, and we're happy to work with
Yeah,
you on that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, although it can be off-putting, the whole mapping concept up front, but obviously this can now be advertised to students, trying to engage more students, but also it's great for the credit transfer team and the faculty because it increases our efficiencies, because when these applications come in, they don't need to have their individual assessment by the faculty,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's also a plus. So
Yeah,
there's a bit more
absolutely.
time up front, but
There's a long-term payoff, yeah, absolutely. And it's the same with keeping appreciate within the faculty, you have to review the precedent awards annually as well, and again we support the civil subject areas, the faculty with that as well, so we advise on changes to the HMC framework and for unit codes and things being updated, and we'll support the faculty in doing that and then make sure they get a transfer office included in that as well, so yeah, absolutely. Okay, great, thank you very
much. Thank you, Steve. Okay, there's a couple of other areas that I want to kind of touch on kind of for the rest of the workshop. So I know myself and Tanya are quite often having conversations about kind of RPL and curriculum design, and quite often faculties will develop their qualifications and then think of RPL. So they'll then think of it kind of once a qualification has been designed, whereas what I suppose from our side, what we're trying to encourage is this consideration of RPL right at the very early stage. So when new qualifications are being designed, curriculums are being put together, is that RPL is kind of considered at that stage, so that we're not kind of thinking about RPL retrospectively. So I just wanted to kind of touch just for a couple of minutes on some of the things to think about. RPL doesn't have to be included within within qualifications, if that's what qualifications teams choose, but for those teams that want to include, want to open up their qualifications to RPL and credit transfer, these are just some of the things kind of to think about. So one of the things I just wanted to start with really is why is consideration of RPL so important at that curriculum design stage? So the Office for Students now has got a greater emphasis on student choice and mobility, so students being able to move around, transfer to within institutions and between institutions. The Office for Students' duty to monitor arrangements for student transfer, so within the Higher Education and Research Act. The degree to which that will be enforced, I'm not sure, but the Office for Students are likely now to monitor the processes and arrangements that we have for student transfer. To remain competitive within the HE market, which I know has kind of been mentioned a couple of times, and that I think particularly is relevant to the apprenticeship market as well, in terms of making sure that we do have considered RPL in the design of our qualifications to make sure that we are as competitive as we can be. And to continue to widen access and participation with higher education, because ultimately recognition of prior learning is a real mechanism for widening access and participation to HE. So what I wanted to kind of open up is just a few things to think about. So right at that very early stage when new qualifications or curriculums are being designed, what sort of things could we think about? So I've kind of broken it down into four areas. So the structure of the qualification. So I know we will have restrictions in terms of kind of how qualifications and how the module sizes, etc. But quite often, if with qualifications that are perhaps modules that are 60 credits, that sometimes makes it quite challenging with regards to kind of credit transfer and recognising prior learning, particularly when the sector has modules that are a lot smaller than that. So something to consider is the size of modules, or potentially having smaller chunks of learning. The level of appropriateness of each module. Now, the reason why that has kind of come up, and I've put this on here, is because we have had a situation where there's been qualifications that have been designed where a level 5, FHEQ level 5 module sits within the first stage of the qualification. So from a credit transfer and RPL point of view, that makes it very, very difficult. So a student might be coming with a level 4 HNC, but because the OU level 1 has got level 5 study within that, that means that the student's limited to be able to only transfer in 90 credits. So that has come up a couple of times, so just thinking about that. In terms of the learning outcomes, in my previous role, I worked at Bedford College for a number of years, and I was responsible for developing a foundation degree there. And one of the key things that we were asked to do was to make our learning outcomes more general. So the more general learning outcomes are, the easier it is to map them. When we go real specific with our learning outcomes, it's hard to then map and match kind of prior study. Also, in terms of those learning outcomes, is the stage that they've achieved. So if you've got core learning outcomes for a programme, for a qualification, ensuring that it's not achieved at stage 1, because then that, again, kind of outrules kind of credit transfer or RPL. So any kind of real specific learning outcomes, ensuring that they're kind of achieved later on throughout the programme. Content. We want to be unique. Every university is creating unique study, and that's really key within our higher education sector, is that we have this kind of evolved way of designing HE content, but having some unique study with some generality to aid that mapping process is always going to be key. Content that develops skills that are mirrored in other contexts, and that's me kind of thinking of experiential learning as well, so developing skills that can be developed in the workplace as well, so that we can start to think about recognising not just credit-bearing qualifications, but non-credit-bearing credit learning that hasn't got any credit associated with it. And then thinking about those prior qualifications, so not just kind of afterwards when a qualification is filled, kind of thinking of the qualifications that we could potentially accept for prior learning. One, at a module specific level, so, you know, are there any particular qualifications that might kind of meet the learning outcomes of specific modules, or at a stage level, so are there any particular qualifications that could be mapped quite nicely to our level, to our individual levels. And this isn't kind of, this is just kind of giving some food for thought when, you know, when designing curriculum and new qualifications from an RPL perspective. The last thing that I wanted to kind of focus on today was about recognition of prior experiential learning. Now, this has come up, and I've kind of been in meetings talking about this, and there is a need for this. There is a need for this, particularly with apprenticeship, and this is something that the Open University don't necessarily have very consistent processes with. So as from a credit transfer, recognition of prior certificated learning, we are the market leader. This was from 2016 HESA data, so 17% share of the market for students entering with a level 4 qualification, and 8% share of the markets entering with a level 5 qualification. So we do credit transfer well. We recognise certificated learning incredibly well. And we have a really sound process for credit assessing professional qualifications that potentially aren't credit bearing or do not lead to a qualification on the framework of higher education qualifications. But RPEL is not actively promoted. Now, I am going to say that I'm still relatively new to the OU. So these things, what I'm going to put up next, I don't have a huge amount of knowledge, but I did a little bit of kind of desktop research looking around the OU site to find out what we have done or what does go on in relation to experiential learning. So there was something that I found that my predecessor had stored in an archive file, which is called Making Sense of Experience. And all I can interpret from that is that there was some consideration of experiential learning that I think followed a similar kind of format to what the empty box module does. I know there were, whether they still exist now, I don't know, but there were APEL version of modules that existed, so a student could take a different path. I know we use experience as an exemption towards practice hours. I know that happens with some programmes, and I know we use experience as entry to postgraduate qualifications. So we are considering, or we have looked at experiential learning, but this I don't think really fulfills our PEL in the way that it's designed to be. So recognition of prior experiential learning is a way of kind of giving credit for somebody's experience. So in terms of our processes here, we don't necessarily have anything. And it is something that is going to kind of be looked at moving forward. So I'm using this opportunity to get your initial thoughts and kind of thought share some ideas. So in terms of how we could apply it, as with kind of, credit transfer, there would be some kind of credit assessment involved in terms of the prior experience and the learning that has taken place in relation to that experience. It could lead to stage exemption through direct entry or module general credit exemption. So that's kind of, I suppose, how we could apply it when we wanted to operationalise it. But what I think is really important is to think about, well, how would we assess it? So what I came up with, and these things that I've come up with here, I'm going to ask you to do a little activity in a minute, but so things that I kind of came up with, feel free to add any more if you can think of anything else. So when we would want to recognise experiential learning, so how experience can be quantified. How do we quantify somebody's experience? How do we put credit? How do we attach credit to somebody's experience? How much would we give? How much would we be prepared to give as an institution, exemption or credit, for experiential learning? How will it be assessed? How would we assess the learning that has happened from the experience? What would it be assessed against? What would we assess it against? What standards would we use? What support and guidance would we provide to these students? What level? Would it be something that would be only, if we would perhaps look to accept at only level 1? Or would it be happy at only level 2 as well? The assessment decision, how would the assessment decision for prior experiential learning, how would it be quality assured? How would we ensure that quality assurance of those decisions? Who would own it? Who would own that process? Cost and resource implications, documentation required, so lots of things to think about. If I missed anything else, anybody think of anything else?
We'll probably come up with the next activity.
I think it would do, yeah. So, what I want you to do is, as a table, I want you to think of, so imagine we are going to start recognising experiential learning. And on your table, I want you to come up with a list of how we'd assess that learning. And I want you to share your most innovative one. So I'll give you a minute just to have a little bit of a think and a discussion, and then we're going to share. And what we're then going to do is I'm then going to get each table to consider a method and answer some questions in relation to that. I hope that's okay. So just a minute or so, have a think about how we would assess it, come up with some ideas, and then I'll ask each table to give us one of their top.
You did a piece of work well.
In terms of what others, yeah.
Roll at some point during the year, given a syllabus, maybe given some half of that syllabus, and then they will come and take an examination. The same examination they have already. And that would affect the measure their
that could be version, I suppose that's also for ourselves. Tests and assess, and if they
do
knowledge and
well in
skills.
That was so important. Because you know, at the end of the day, it's like something like a job application or something like that. Yes, I mean, somebody said, well, I mean, it's quite clear that
There are competitive, but
the way it gets
less work for the student and less work for the parents.
That's the word I was
And also within the concept of which
Has everybody got a letter to share?
But if you were doing,
Oh, yeah.
Those two definitely are more
So you have to have that sense of so it's not really
Okay.
So it's not.
I'm going to stop you there. Just to kind of take some ideas. So, if I could just ask each table just to share one kind of example that they come up with, and then that'll kind of form the basis of the kind of next activity. I will show you in a minute. I did do a little bit of desktop research and looked at about 5 or 6 universities just to see what they do. So I will show you kind of what they do as well, and it might kind of bring up some other assessment methods. But what kind of key ones do you want to provide from this?
Well, we've got 3, but I won't. Should we do that one?
Yeah. So we sort of like a portfolio of their experience, especially if it was their employer was on board and they could put input in. And that could be almost a portfolio through the whole of their working life to bring in that experience, which would then be assessed in a quantifiable way to then give them credit onto a particular qualification.
Okay. And I know that is one that's particularly popular within the sector. There's a lot of kind of institutions that do use portfolios. And I think that's why the next activity is really important, because although that sounds like a brilliant idea, it's about when you then put it in the context of the OU and the size and the mass that we kind of work with, how would we actually be able to manage that as an institution? What about this table? Have you come up with anything different?
I did a piece of work on challenge exams and how we might use challenge exams to maybe award credit.
Okay, thank you very much.
We had portfolio and we had a challenge exam, and then I just put down empty box.
Yeah, that's
surprise,
surprise.
Helen's not here for that one. Don't worry, I'll carry it on.
Thank you. And final table?
Well,
have you come up with anything different?
Well, slightly. We had portfolio of evidence as well, but that would need to be accompanied by some sort of reflective piece, because we talked about the fact that it's not about what someone's done, it's about what they've learned from what they've done. So the portfolio of career evidence in isolation probably isn't enough.
Okay, so we've come up with 3 then. So we've got kind of portfolio, which is a common one that's come up, challenge exams and empty box. So let me just show you kind of what I found in terms of what the sector I do. And I haven't kind of got the university names or anything on here, but just to kind of give you an idea of what the sector do. So in terms of how they kind of apply it, so module exemption through curriculum mapping, Negotiated module learning outcomes, which I believe is where the student kind of creates their own learning outcomes, and then it's negotiated with the course team at the institution. Workplace accreditation and stage exemption through direct entry. So that's kind of how it's applied, but then how it's assessed. So we've got portfolio, challenge exams, project work, assessment on demand, which I believe might be that they complete a piece of assessment that's relevant to the unit that they're asking to have exemption against. Interview, viva, audition, production of an artefact. So obviously some of these you can see are really relevant to certain programme areas. And I think with it, there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. You know, all programme areas are so diverse that but it's about kind of how could we get experiential learning kind of recognised and assessed here at the OU. So I want us to choose 4 to do the next. So if you each individual table do a different one. So who would like to do portfolio? I think that's a really useful one to do. Any takes on
what they're doing a bit first?
That'll come. So all you're going to do is answer some questions. So there's an envelope on your table, and it's just got there's 8 questions numbered 1 to 8, and it's literally just asking you some questions to think about. Well, how would we do that? How would it work here at the OU? Any takers for portfolio?
We'll do portfolio.
Portfolio, lovely. Jay, do you want to do whites then, one like an empty box?
Perfect.
Yeah. Would you like to choose one that you'd like to do on this table?
Happy to do challenge
Challenge exam. And Steve, your table? Would you like to go?
What do you think?
I'm just entirely sure how the project works.
Well, everyone-
It's from assessment on demand.
Everyone else has got one, so give us a minute and we'll choose one.
There is another sheet of flip chart paper on your tables. So you'll find an envelope, and I'll put some questions in there. So what I want you to do is at the table, thinking about your method, just answer the questions that are kind of in that envelope, and then there's some other, if you have done it really quickly, there's some other things to think about. And those are the sort of questions that myself and Tanya yesterday thought were kind of key to think about to start with. Myself and Tanya are going to have a wander around, discuss the method in the context of the OU, answer as many of the questions as you can, and pop your ideas on a piece of flip chart. I think possibly 10 minutes.
Sorry. It depends on whether you
So really just
there needs to be something for selling in terms of the syllabus. What students what we could provide for those bits
but this is the end assessment.
It's one of the issues we had was data for an organization to set up an exam for somebody. Within the OU, it's not easy to identify who owns what. It's about someone going into an examination, showing
about whether you're going to have
so there is an exercise to do in advance.
And that would be the kind of efficient
Having someone else to talk to the equations and
existing
model
assessments. Yeah. The trouble is, of course, that I think those all these assessments are main assessments.
Well, that's
SBA and
Well, that's what we need to think about. What we
yeah.
do with
And there are
and it's subjects,
Yeah.
Particularly it's we open the DMAs, which you can almost start with DMAs. When you've got, but when you've got the OPAS only,
Yes.
you haven't actually got the subject assessments in there, have you?
Yeah.
You have to
If you want to go with project, then we start the design.
which may be different, but skills, but I suppose for one,
I think the quality assurance of the
yeah.
kind of the examination and assessment process.
And then you
How the student learns it or whatever.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
Yes.
Is relevant to the process.
But that's the whole point.
Yeah, make it as
So I think that would be part of the
We've kind of answered that one, haven't we, in a
Put
sense?
anything down on here.
Oh, sorry. Starting review, theoretically.
I was just thinking about before about the project and the actual funding for the project.
Double assessment.
Yeah.
Not reflection.
We've been trying to do that.
Because at the moment we're very
I mean, I just think
it needs to be assessed. So we need to assess the level.
Is that not an education requirement to say that competency?
Well,
I know it's
they're
different
using
because
the
one goes to this level.
There's a real deficit
Yeah,
around that kind of
But if the exam is testing the learning.
you can actually
That's something that we will do.
That's what I was wondering, you know, if you're looking at,
Yeah.
if we look at an exam, that's one.
But that was
What's that?
Yeah, we have to think about.
We haven't got an exam, we haven't got an
That's
exam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like this idea. Yeah.
If it's
Yeah.
in that case,
So
you
you
need to
could
create.
you specify?
And also, that's that from.
We've got it.
Yeah.
Just slip it inside.
So that's one of the conversations that we have.
Yeah, and also I think it's how skills.
Oh, yes, yeah.
This isn't it, it's
Related to the level of recognition. Because, you know, you might have, I think you're if we're doing our own, so what else is there?
So one of the things just going to give another 5 minutes just to have a think about this,
and then we'll be comfortable with it.
and then we'll have a bit more
When we're
setting.
setting credit transfer, where we're basically trusting other organisations who are also subject to external quality measures. Yeah.
What did you I think
Whereas if you work together on the work the result work, that's what
that was so you personally.
Is that what we're on for? I think it's about moving on and also some way to I mean, it's certainly like your presentation test. Is that not implementation? That's one.
reputable way of us.
It's also makes it more attractive to the student market.
And I think there's also the cost of students an issue.
Yeah, it's all those things that we said. Well, it is relevant because it's about it, isn't it? Which is, yeah, I mean, it's
I think that's that is question you don't create you don't want to create that. Just keep it I would have loved but I don't, but that's what we asked the medicine. Well, I don't know what it is. That's what
less relevant. Still kind of
which is
Then I'm sorry,
This is always been for smaller institutions that you make your money in because out of the teaching and the assessment and the award. In this you're going to have one. So that would set you're not making money. Overall, it's a worthwhile
said and then you sort of various ways when you went in no, absolutely, I get that, yeah. That's all this thing.
That's the wrong thing.
I may not be trying to have no qualifications. You have to have
and that's actually where they not vary, where before it's kind whereas now
what program areas is
there's a lot more variance in that as
very practical based within the module.
I guess because you actually see the people not so sure about the person out there. You get that question. My other habits are yeah, so Andrew Smith
Yeah, I think so. But it's sort of, I know it's been more to the foundation, but they weren't prepared to roll it out into
Right, I'm going to stop you there. Sorry if you're in mid-flow speaking. Sorry. I always forget
that whole practice learning is see if we can entail that to where it's game on with just 600 practice hours so we've dealt with this.
I'm very conscious that it's 10 to 1, so we're pretty much going to the end of the workshop. So I'm not going to have time to kind of go through everything that you've talked about, but I just wondered whether each kind of table might just share something that you've spoken about, perhaps when you, I don't know whether you got down to the barriers of operation, or something for consideration in relation to your method, just to kind of share with the group. What I will do is I will take pictures so that everybody kind of we can share the work that you've done. Do you want to start with portfolios or anything you'd like to share? Any key considerations if we utilise this?
I mean, one of them is, you know, I don't like, because obviously I really want this, but we've got a long list of challenges. That's not where you want to start, is it? No, but I mean, obviously the kind of assessment, you know, with portfolios, there's a whole thing about assess confidence in assessing skills and how that, you know, there's a training and conceptual academic challenge.
Yeah.
And then there's a question of, you know, how skills relate to credit. And there's stuff about comparability across settings and employers. There's buy-in, faculty buy-in and resourcing across the university, I guess.
Yeah. And there are going to be potential programmes that wouldn't necessarily suit, you know, and I suppose it goes back to the whole idea of one size doesn't necessarily fit all, and actually you need to potentially consider that there might be some areas where utilising a portfolio might not be the best way forward for them.
Yeah, we thought it would be more vocational qualifications rather than pure academic qualifications. But we did have a number of, I can't see it there because it's the advantages is things sort of like it will draw students in if that's something you can offer, and also it will drawing employers and things to be able to go offer them something like that.
I mean, we also obviously in the apprenticeship space really it's a requirement.
Yeah.
But obviously that's a specific
area
rather than everything.
Yeah.
What about challenge exams? We had a bit of an interesting discussion on this one because there was some obvious kind of benefits in terms of the OU direct provision because there are exams already set up. It's a very definite way of assuring that the student genuinely has that learning achievement, so you could get the economies of scale. So that on that side of things, it obviously looks quite good. However, we also talked about if that same sort of system could apply in our validated partners, and we came across lots of challenges there because you're dealing with smaller numbers, there isn't that economy of scale, they tend not to use those type of assessments anyway because of the type of learners that they have who are more mature, and even though they have that kind of life experience and work experience, they're not used to doing an exam. That would probably make them run a mile. So we saw a lot of difficulties with that. So yeah, it was interesting with retention. Depending on who you are and whether you're a large organisation with everything set up or whether you're a smaller organisation.
Yeah. And having something like that on initial thoughts from you might be some, might look more desirable than say a portfolio because you have this potential set up. But again, whether that would suit every program.
I think that's one of the things, that there are some areas where this would absolutely suit in a way that a portfolio wouldn't. I would hate to see a portfolio used for maths, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's something that needs such deep consideration.
why it's a 130 version? Well, we sort of talked about an empty box. We sort of talked about what is it, first of all, and maybe lost track of time a bit. In terms of just things like owning the process, we then sort of talked about it would be the qual or the program. So you're then going right down to a very specific set of things that you're trying to explore. And then we talked a bit about areas and subjects that would be good for, or background skills, and subjects that wouldn't be. Some of the challenges about making it scalable, making it operational, barriers, namely resources mentioned. And then we had a little bit of conversations around kind of consistency of fairness, robust assessments. Could it be a cheaper process? Would it be more time heavy? And then in terms of just thinking a bit about the sort of being able to capture some of the granular experience of some areas that would need, and then how do you do that in the technical, but maybe if it's very practical, that would be really helpful. Then just the last two, in terms of credit exemption, that would be very much specific to the qualification of the programme. And then in terms of what level of study, we were running out of time there, but I just put all.
Okay, thank you very much. And then you did project, didn't you?
Yeah, we went for project, but we just saw lots of challenges, I think, as well. I think regardless of which methodology you go down, in terms of who would own the process and who would assess, I think regardless, but very much think that's about academic judgment. I think right away you get down to discussion about learning outcomes, and yeah, it's about academic judgment. So I think it's very much that we need to be an academic in the area who would own the process. How would you quality assure it? Don't know. Pass. I think, and again, the main barriers to implementation, I think it's about cost and resource, because it's going to be such an individualistic process. It's going to be person and time, cost intensive. Yeah. In terms of what would be the advantage of using this method, I think we thought project-based work might work well for technical subjects. We could see how it would work very well in computing, how it works for other areas in arts, for example. Again, not sure. In terms of level of study, probably easier at lower levels if learning outcomes aren't as specific, but much more difficult at higher levels when you start to get into much more specific and challenging learning outcomes. And how much credit exemption could be awarded. I guess that's more of a philosophical question. Should it be the same as RPL? Should it be the same certified learning, or is there a rationale for it being different? So yeah, what's the challenges?
I think there are, and I think this just kind of identifies what we've spoken about, isn't it? That there are lots of challenges with this kind of thing, but it is definitely something that's come to me within my role in terms of from an apprenticeship kind of point of view. Is something that needs to be further developed. Myself and Tanya are quite keen to put a working group together. I know there's lots of groups and everyone's incredibly busy, but if you were interested in being involved in it, feel free to drop me an email. You'll be very, very welcome. And really, I think in where we go moving on, not quite sure, but I know it's something over the next few months that will be kind of looked at further, to look at the viability of doing it. Unfortunately, we don't have an idea of scale, do we, in terms of, because we manage expectations, the credit transfer team manage student expectations so well, students know that we don't, they can't apply for recognition of prior experiential learning, so it's not like we can even track the number of, inquiries. So yeah, it's a bit unknown, really.
Yeah, I think you can see from all the challenges, this is why it hasn't been taken forward before. It's been on the radar for about 7 years, and I think it's finally apprenticeships that brought it.
I certainly know when I was working with a group in Northern Ireland where if this was available, the employers would probably jump at. So that there are. Come and talk to you about it.
Yeah, definitely. We have come towards the end, so I would just like to say a huge thank you for taking the time to come along to the workshop this morning. And any questions, obviously myself and Tanya, feel free to send us an email. One thing I did want to kind of just plug right in, is my focus groups. If anybody is interested in joining our focus group on Tuesday the 19th of March, room to be confirmed, but I know numbers, but I will be sending out an invite in the next few days. So if you would like to come along, the focus is going to be on student support. So if you feel that you've got expertise that you could add to that and strengthen that, you'll be very much welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You do have the opportunity to fill the meeting, so feedback would be very much appreciated. So, thank you.
Okay,
So do you come down just for the morning or
I'll sign up for that one already when we get home, and I think I'm done somewhere else now.
Okay.
I've signed up for everything on the boat.
Into London as well, London, and then taxi presumably from the
Thank you. Oh dear, where have you come from, did you say? I come from Kent. Oh yeah, well dear, yeah, difficult to get out of Kent. I grew up in Essex, so it was difficult to get out there as well. I work in oh, good grief, that's not easy.
Nothing, no, I actually come from place, I was born from Romford.
Oh yes.
Oh, there you go, that's where I am.
Exactly, yes.
Wow.
So I have a Hayden College up here on my radar. MRHUCP, I had to get the question from the site. Many just going bowling.
The bowling at the start of the pit?
Yes.
Yes, I used to go there.
This bit is in
Yes.
There is a bus.
Yeah.
I know where the bus stops.
Good. Oh, no, it's what it's all about. Well, I'm leaving the industry life. I've got too many other things to do before I go.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah.